I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I know we've talked about this and having a conversation, and we talked about our fluid schedules and how challenging it is to make these kind of time for these things. So I really do appreciate you making the time.
Yeah, stoked the stars align and we're here to chat. It's been I don't know, we talk a lot over text and social media and stuff, but then I got to catch you in Temecula quick, and so it was sick to jump on again and catch up on things.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really cool because what I've been trying to do personally with this podcast is add a little bit of diversity to the way that things are approached, and taking the things that I love and I'm interested in, and then bringing them into here. And you're one of these people that I've kind of come across from my love of cycling, and then realizing that you're also incredibly talented at rally sport, which we'll get into as well. And it's really cool. On top of that, we can talk a little bit about like how you built up your own image, and how I can tell how thoughtful you are about how you approach things. And but it's really good, I think, for people that are normally attending this episode or these podcasts. They're looking for art focused centric things, and it's good that we're adding these other kind of outside things, because I really do believe that what you do is an art form through and through, and your art is just a different medium. But for those that aren't aware of who you are, how do you explain to like people like who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I mean, I usually would just say I'm like an athlete, very generically, mountain bike athlete, motorsports athlete. There's obviously like more in-depth levels of what I really do, like obviously incorporating some of the production side of things to my work, whether bike or motorsport. I like to be a part of the creative process and those things, and I kind of produce majority of my content and projects and things we put out to the world. So that's that, it's another passion of mine, and hobbies like photography and things that kind of align with that. And then motorsport was always just a hobby other than mountain biking, which then ended up growing into more than just than just a hobby, but racing for Subaru Motorsports as a factory driver, and then doing some automotive commercial work, and kind of like fun side stuff that I never thought I'd get to do. But mainly mountain biking's been my day to day career for close to 20 years now. So yeah, I'd say I'm just a mountain biker.
I love how humble you are too. If you're listening to this, I would say maybe take a moment. We'll put links in the show notes so you can see his amazing talent and play. It doesn't make a lot of sense, and when somebody's so brilliant at something, they make it look easy. That's how I really define when I think of somebody's mastery. When I see it, and I'm like, how do they make something so complicated look so easy? And that's really you mentioned 20 years. You put your 20,000 hours in, potentially, which is
Yeah.
really awesome. And you've turned something that would normally be in the context of the world and the average consumer would be like quote unquote a hobby, but you've turned it into you've amassed this insane, I don't even know how to explain it. Like the way that you've approached it, the art form that you're doing with your writing. And yeah, I think it's just like taken on a life of its own. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much like a purist. Like I like to do things a specific, and it's more like how I feel like things should be put out to the world of people. Like obviously, like I can pick things apart because I do it all day, and I'm so picky, and I see the little details, and I'm like, "Oh, I don't like that. I want to
Mhm.
improve that. I want to improve that." And so it's for me, it's being able to you know get to like the end of a project, or a certain type of riding where I'm really happy with what I've done, and then being able to, whatever the final product is, whether it's someone watching me at an event, or it's a video project, or whatever, it's like giving people like the best project I possibly can, and like just well thought out without cutting corners or doing something that feels like not organic or like core to mountain biking. Like and I think some of that has actually come across And that's probably what you're talking about is, I'm really happy to hear that too, that, maybe that's the part that seems like it really catches people's attention because it's a little different, or maybe it's more methodical or something like that.
Mm.
But yeah, I think it's really just like the purist in me and like seeking out the best out of everything, and never quite being totally pleased with every piece of work.
Mm. Yeah, seeking the best. I can feel that for sure. I feel like when I see the things that you put out, it's distilled. Does that make sense? That's probably the word I would say. Like you've distilled this summation of 20 years of this experience, this passion, and you put it into these seconds of footage for the rest of us to consume and to be inspired by. Having tried mountain bike, having ridden bikes my whole life, still riding bikes, like there's a thing that happens to you in your mind and your body when you become one with a bike. It's a spiritual thing. It's hard to really put to words what
No,
it is.
absolutely.
I think you know it. Obviously, you know
Yeah.
it. I know it, but I've never gone beyond it just being like a love, a passion, and a hobby. And I actually kind of like that it stays there for me because I have an obsessive personality, and as you know, and as we talked about my current obsession, but I love that you're able to distill. And when I see the things that you create, I feel like they're so distilled. And this is kind of an example of the first time I encountered your work was I was just looking for inspiration. I was mountain biking a lot, and then I found out who you were. And I think a friend of mine might have sent me your work. And I think it was, I can't remember the name of the video, but there was no music and it was just the sound of the bike and the freewheel spinning. And I was like, this is the best. Finally, somebody really understands what it sounds like when you're really, really, truly riding. And if you're really good and smooth at riding it, you just hear the sound of the wind and the tires and the freewheel, and everything else is just the flow state. And I love that. And you mentioned there's these keywords that you said: the best, not cutting corners, being happy, purity, organic, and seeking the best, basically. And I love that. Those are, I'm not sure if these are things that you meditate on, but I feel that in the work. I feel like even if you did a bunch of different takes of one move or one trick, I feel like you capture it and go, this is really probably the best version of that trick that I can acquire at this moment. Is that kind of how
That's
it works?
exactly it. Yeah, yeah. Like never, settling on something that isn't up to par.
Mm.
Obviously, like we get on to a timeline with these projects or whatever we're doing. Like you only have a short window. Like you're trying to do it with the light at the optimal time, and obviously I want to get the best take I can get, but you only get so many takes, and sometimes yeah, but it's not settling. Sometimes we go back to make sure that it's just right, and yeah, that's exactly it. Is like I know how it should feel and it should sound and it should look because I've done it so many times preparing for those moments. So like when I
Mm.
get there and it's like it doesn't all feel right, then I'm like, we need to do it again, or maybe this angle isn't showing it how it should,
Mm.
or the light's just not right. It's like we need to come back and do this when it looks the best it can look.
Hmm. I love that. It's really crazy to have somebody that, like yourself, that's multifaceted. Um, uh, by you being the talent and the person in front of the camera doing the thing that's spectacular, but at the same time knowing the mechanism in which acquires the best result, that's a real hard gap to fill in my mind. You're a producer and then you're a director. And then, I mean, I don't know if you'd self-appoint these things, but if you're telling me that you're waiting for instances of light to capture it perfectly, that's like seeing it, and that's cinematography and photography, and then capitalizing on the moment, that's production, and then being able to execute, which is the talent version of that, which is being the thing in front of the camera while we're looking, and
For
that's
sure.
really interesting. So for people that maybe don't understand the idiosyncrasies of this thing, let's maybe talk about a situation where you're building out a concept of a trick. Could you walk us through that? Like going to land, seeing it naturally, and then building tricks into it. How do you approach that?
Totally. I mean, even to take like a step just back real quick, like I would say I'm very lucky to have like really skilled friends and a group of talented filmmakers and photographers
Mhm.
and editors and things like that. So I would say, like you said, okay, like I produce, I direct a bit, you know, and but it's so collaborative because
Yeah.
even on their end, like the from the cinematography side, I lean on those dudes to be like, what trick's gonna look cool here? You know, like,
Mhm.
is my style good? Or like, do you need me to do it? You know, it's like
Great.
everyone collaborates and even like outside of their skill set because we are all passionate about it and we all understand it.
Mhm.
And then yeah, like so diving into trying to capture a certain moment, a certain trick, obviously from my end early on, like ideally I have a set plan when we come to like production. Um, we might, you know, I might be practicing at home and I'll set up a feature at home that I could practice a certain trick, and then I kind of get it dialed or close enough to where I feel confident that I could do it somewhere else. And then we might show up on set, we'll build set track, and I'll have these ideas for the features that I want to film. So we'll build it, try to make it look and ride how it's supposed to for the ideas I have in my head. And then when it comes to actually shooting it, you know, we'll, you know, pick the appropriate time, and you know, everyone will collaborate on angles, make sure this is going to show it the best, and we just kind of we go for it from there, like try and get that moment. And it's just one foot in front of the other because it's just, you know, that's, you know, one moment out of 20, 30 moments we need to create, you know, even a short web piece, right?
Mhm. I love that. And yeah, definitely I wasn't trying to say that you do everything all at once. And I do love like, and I got a chance to meet your friends who are also your collaborators when you guys went, we had breakfast that day. And it's so lovely to see that warmth in the collaborative experience because it's not always there. But if you have, like a brotherhood of sorts where you can just lean on one another for taste and for objectivity, because filmmaking is a battle of objectivity a lot of the times, and you get so saturated in the moment of doing something, and it's so easy to get lost in your own self and your own ego. So it's so good to have people that have taste amongst you so that you can lean on them when you're not having the capacity. I just, it's really hard for me to fathom. And I think it comes down to just the fact that you have a sheer will. You kind of broke it down in an executable fashion, which is you plan things, which is you get the idea in your head and then you execute it at home where you can privately fail and succeed and test and trial and not hurt yourself because injury is a big proponent of this.
Yeah.
And then so that's part of prepping, and then you go out and execute. But when you execute, you collaborate, and then you just do it until it kind of works right. But even when you guys were here, which was so ironic that out of nowhere you were like nearby, and so even when you guys were here, we had that crazy snow and rainstorm, and you guys were having to kind of work your latest piece together through that. And you know, you can plan prep and everything, but Mother Nature and things that are bigger than us constantly are like, nah, I'm going to put you over here. I'm going to do that. And how do you deal with that on the moment of execution and dealing with those kind of obstructions, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of just comes with the territory as well, like being an
Yeah.
athlete or you know, shooting in a scenario that's not controlled, you know, obviously outdoors. You're like you try to be 100% planned, but you know you can't. Like it's always kind of this like you're sort of like 70, 80% plan, and then you're always that other little bit, you're open to like variable change where you're like you might have to think on the fly. You might have to change up like that image in your head of like how you picture things happening. Um, so I think that like just like you said with that shoot, and we had all this crazy snow in Southern California, which we would have
Who would have
never
thought that?
imagined. Exactly.
At the exact time that you're trying to do what you're because
Yeah,
you're from Canada, so you're like you're used to that part of it, but then down you're
yeah.
like I'm going to go as far away as I can.
That's it. I'm like chasing the sun, and all of a sudden I'm like, it's snowier here than at home. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so wild, but also makes for like,
Yeah.
you know, those cool stories and moments. Like again, like these
Yeah.
people are my friends, and we make the best of everything, even though like it's not perfect. It's not going to plan. At
Yeah.
the end of the day, like there was some moments that came of it that were really special that we wouldn't have captured if it was hot, sunny California. So,
Hmm. Okay.
we look at the bright side, and
Mm.
it worked out. So we're all really stoked on what happened. But yeah, definitely there's those moments where we're just like, yeah, we're like, today nothing's gonna happen, and we need to kind of like take the day to brainstorm on like how we can still achieve what we need to do in our
Mm.
timeline, moving forward, and again, still collaborating even when things aren't going the best way possible. But yeah, it's kind of never getting caught up on like that, like things aren't going to happen perfectly in this space, in this world, like, and just knowing that, okay, well, time to shift gears, and we'll
Mm.
we'll do this instead, and we can always come back to that, or however we need to make this like end goal still flourish.
Nice. I like that. That's really, I mean, it makes sense because you mentioned perfection and these words, these kind of catchphrases that we use and point as artists or people just to something basically stating that something's never done. I always say that, well, I believe that art is never done. It's just simply due. And
Totally.
there's always room for improvement in some capacity. And our best work, I think, is always tomorrow.
Yeah,
Would you agree?
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, a lot of
Mm.
these times, like even just daily writing, but leaving a contest or leaving a project, I'm always like, I'll definitely look at the highlights of like, oh, I'm really proud of like this moment and that moment, and
Mm.
whatever. But there's always the like,
Mm.
I wish I did that, or like, I wish I got that a bit better, or maybe next time we could capture it like this. And but those little bits of like, you know, flame and spark that ignite the next idea,
That's right. Yeah.
where you're like, okay, well, next time I'm gonna like improve on this, or like maybe I just have this whole other idea that we didn't get to do over here, but now it's an entire project that I have in my head because of this last project. So yeah, it's definitely never done. I always look forward at like improving, and I have a hard time. I'm critical of myself, so I have a hard time looking at the things I've done and being completely satisfied.
Mm. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, the hunger for perfection is never filled, you know, and that's what makes it fun, as you said. And it's cool that you can see that too. Is that your desire to advance and grow and be curious of things is really where the next one spawns, because if you
Yeah,
were complacent and just like, yeah, I nailed that trick, I'm the best, and that we're done, then you would just kind of stagnate, right? And then
yeah. It also wouldn't be
stagnation.
fun.
Yeah, exactly. The challenge is probably what makes it
the
most
the
interesting to
challenge is
do.
what makes it interesting. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
you always have something to chase. It's never over.
Yeah. And we should not pass over the idea that what you do is very dangerous too. And you could get violently hurt if you're not careful in certain things, especially some of these bigger like gaps that you do at these bigger competitions. Like I freak out if I was your mom. I'm like, no, it's crazy. But I don't, it's really, it's hard to tell. Like this is something that I think is a failure of the medium, and not to critique it, but the failure of the medium is when you're actually doing it or when you're seeing it or you're interacting with it or it's happening in real time, what you do makes no sense logically oftentimes because you can't grasp scale and you can't
Yeah,
grasp the nature of scale no matter what. And I think GoPro as a company has done a wonderful job to put us in the place of the athlete, but it's still so far removed. Have you thought about this? Like, even with all the cameras and coverage and doing it in an artistic way, do you feel like it's even close to kind of touching what it is to do what you do?
it's it's so tough because sometimes, like, I would say 10% of the time you get a shot where you're like, this looks way gnarlier than what it really was. But a lot of
Yeah.
the time you're always like, it's like, yeah, it kind of shows it. We do our best to show it as best as possible, but there's
Mhm.
there's so many little like minute details that go into it. Like, even like a lot of people ask me about, spectating at Rampage. Obviously, Rampage is, I feel like, a pretty commonly known event
Could
for
you
mountain
explain that
biking.
to
It's
those that don't know what Rampage
Yeah,
is?
so Rampage is like a big mountain freestyle event where we ride from like the top of a very tall mesa in uh, southern Utah near Zion Park, like big red mountains, lots of cliffs, and like really narrow ridges, and it's obviously very exposed. So they do a big mountain bike event there, and it's definitely one of those events. It's like it's a spectacle because it's crazy looking no matter where you
Insane.
stand, and even on video it looks crazy. But a lot of the time, even the broadcast doesn't really show how gnarly it is or like the scale of things. It's hard to totally understand it.
Yeah.
So I have people ask me like, "Oh, like should I go spectate Rampage?" And a lot of times I'm just like, "No, you should watch the broadcast and then fly there like the next week or the weeks after when no one's there where you're actually allowed to go walk up the mountain where we've built these trails and features and then really understand because there's so many little details on like our path down the mountain where you don't see it on the broadcast, but there might be like a cliff that's like, you've got to get around it before going off this big drop, or like things are turning in the air and like you could hit this wall, or if you missed the landing on the left, like you're just going off a cliff. And there's so many little details that you'll never see on the broadcast. And I think without actually walking it, you'll never understand the scale. And I feel like that is similar with a lot of the production stuff we do, although with production versus like a broadcast, we can start to move around a bit more and get better angles of singular features instead of trying to show the whole run in one kind of detail.
Yeah.
Um, but it's still hard sometimes because again, you don't see like those little details like, oh, there's kind of like a sketchy rock in the landing or there's a tree in the way, and but you would really never notice in video a lot of the time because you kind of need that POV view, plus you need like the ground angles, and we're not using
Yeah.
absolutely everything to show just one trick or something like that.
Ground angle is one of those things that, so this is what I was doing when I started riding mountain bike. As I was looking at GoPro footage of other riders in my area and looking at the trails, and I was like, oh, that looks pretty easy. And then I would go there and I'm like, oh my God, I'm basically riding my brake the whole time. And I'm having to like really chug through this really gnarly, super vert feeling, and it's one thing to look at it on a GoPro, but it doesn't really, you don't realize that your body at this angle is different from this, and these
Yeah.
little nuances. And for you, you're like launching yourself and like projecting yourself out into like air. and so, and that's a whole nother like system that you're engaging. But I'm just talking about like just the nuances of what you said. And obviously being a newbie rider, still loving it and got decently good at it. But at the same time, there's so many levels to it. But the thing I realized quickly, and this is something that I took in when I started doing it and watching your videos, I was like, it just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense because what you're doing doesn't make sense, even to somebody that understands the nuances of it. And that's, I guess, potentially what makes it so magical, but I think that's when I watched it though, I'm still like, this isn't even coming close to explaining and expressing just how insane it is. And it's real shame too, because I'm sure a lot of people watch the stuff so small on their phones as well,
Yeah.
which is another disservice as well. It would be really cool. Maybe there's a way to do it. And I don't know if, I'm sure somebody's done this or got somewhat close to it, but like had like a 360 HDRI live real time of the rider doing these things. But still then I still don't think it's even close, because then you're missing the synergy of bike and body and mind and matter and weight and inertia and all of those things. It's fascinating stuff too to me. It's like perplexing.
Yeah,
It's literally
totally.
perplexing.
You
Yeah.
just you need it to be like just massive to really take it in, right? Because you have
Yeah.
like a GoPro where you're like you get the perspective, but then the angle's so wide where you start to lose the sense of like the tire against the terrain. Like
Yeah.
it's like it's almost too wide to really take everything in, although you're like in the bike, which is really cool. And then you get on the ground and you're right there with the rider, then you can start to see like, the details in the terrain, like what you're kind of like the rider's up against. But yeah, it's so hard to capture that stuff perfectly through video, even though you can do some things so beautifully with it, like
Yeah.
where like it can explain things that you can't, that you wouldn't experience on a bike either. So that's like kind of the other part I really like about it is like
Mm.
there's with filmmaking, there's things that I like just me riding alone I can't create. but you can create almost this whole nother world and culture around mountain biking with editing and how you capture it. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's pretty cool.
That's a cool way of looking at it too. It's like it might not be able to capture like the raw nuance of the of what it is to be you, but there's a way to use the power of cinema, editing, timing, music, score, all of these things, whatever it might be, to create something completely different. Because that
Yeah.
allows you to do multiple takes and then pick the best one and the best moment of a thing and be able to zoom in on something and like capture that essence and stuff. So, but yeah, if it's really, yeah, it's hard to really fathom and put to your
Yeah.
mind to
It's
these
in
things.
it's invoking those emotions of people that watch it. Obviously, like a lot of the stuff I do is mainly tailored to people that mountain bike or core audience. Obviously, we want people in the mainstream to watch it and love it and enjoy it or maybe get interested in mountain biking because of it. But
Yeah.
it is like for me when I look at a project, I'm like I have a lot of boxes I like to tick. And there's obviously like the areas where you want it to bring up some emotion, you want people to like what they hear, and then you want the tricks where people like are trying to wrap their head around it,
Mhm.
like they maybe it doesn't make sense to them, and it's like the wow tricks. But then even the parts that maybe the riding is more simple, but it has like a certain style, or you know, it just it feels like cool, and it feels like you understand the flow and like the finesse of it. Whereas like you kind of feel like if I can check all those boxes, then you've kind of created like a well-rounded piece
Mhm.
that's worth putting out to the world.
Yeah, it's a high. If you're a filmmaker, it's I think it's one of the highest parts of the responsibility in my mind is to respect your audience, number one, and then command their respect by showing them something worth them sitting through. You know,
Yeah,
and that's super tough to do. Have you
totally.
watched the documentary "Until the Wheels Fall Off" about Tony
Yeah,
Hawk?
yeah.
What do you think of that?
I thought it was pretty rad. Yeah, I
Mm.
was stoked on it.
Yeah, I felt like I think Sam he does a podcast as well. Armchair, I can't remember his name. I think it's Sam, but anyways, he's a filmmaker of that the document, and I felt it was the things I took away from it is I didn't realize how deep that Tony's life went. I knew it did because I grew up in that same era. My brother used to skate with him, and I kind of remember those moments from my childhood. And I knew that he had a hard time because he was so different, but I didn't realize his dad was so involved in all these things. But anyways, the thing that I really appreciated about that documentary about capturing that athlete, Tony Hawk, who's quite a brilliant, is his
Of
possession.
course.
He was so possessed, and
Still.
yeah, to this day, he's like, and I love it, but I also like, I think that it was a beautiful way of showing like how damaging it can be to somebody to be
Yeah,
so
yeah,
possessed by something, and the lack of balance that that possession can create in one life. And I'm not trying to judge him in any way because he's an absolute god to what he's done, but it's simply because I think his possession is. I felt like it was really interesting to see that side of the sport and to see these guys who have been doing it since they were young boys and now being older men still possessed is really interesting. So
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, like, and it's not just sport. Like anything, if you do it that long, like there has to be some level of,
Mm.
like you said, possessed, but like there is something like not perfect about you. Like you have to like
Mhm.
be able to dig deep to continue to bring out that kind of stuff as an athlete or an artist, and over you know however long he's been doing it now, like 40 years or something. It's
It's
crazy, but
crazy.
you have those, you have to go through some dark moments to kind of come back out into the light, and but there's obviously a really strong passion with that keeps him coming back, um, and people alike. So it's really inspiring. But then yeah, like for me, I always wonder like where the drive is for, because I don't think it's the same for everyone in those scenarios. I
No.
think it always comes from maybe it comes from a childhood space, or an addictive personality, or maybe they just yeah, they thought it was so cool that they just never let go of it kind of thing. But I always find
Goes
it so
deeper than
interesting
that.
in like where, yeah, like where are like individual people in those spaces getting their passion, their drive? Because I feel like all of us can kind of pull from that a little bit too, that they've been able to continue to push through, the hardships of their careers and passions.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a good point. There's another documentary about an athlete that's kind of in that same realm in a different way as Michael Jordan's documentary
Yeah,
on The
super good.
Last Dance, I think it's called.
Yeah,
Yeah, what do you think of that one?
I thought it was great, and I liked how they didn't really like, kind of what I'm saying is like there was darker times and like the darker parts of the personality that make him the athlete that he is, like how he pushed the team, how he, maybe wasn't the most liked at all times, but it helped get the most out of everyone around him and help him accomplish his goals and become this icon that he is. So I think that part, I like that they didn't cut that part out and just make him look like the
Same.
hero the whole time, because you're like,
Yeah,
those are kind of the parts that,
they're really
I,
important.
yeah, they're really important. And it's like kind of funny because it's like, they always say don't meet your heroes, and it's like it's kind of like that. That's the reason, because like it does take more than just being this perfect person to reach those heights, like there's going to be times where you don't like things, just yeah, you're like you're crazy about things, and maybe you're not stoked on like how you had to accomplish it, or like you learn as a human and you grow and you're like, okay, like I don't want to do that next time, like that's not me. Or I feel like there's just those things that bring you back down to earth and make those people more, yeah, human, and not just these like, yeah, fictional characters, superheroes.
Yeah, it's a dangerous place for an athlete or anybody in the public space to become more than just a human because then you're subjective to what people think of you and that's not really who you are and then you become something larger than yourself. There's a give and take I think with
Totally.
that and I think it's a real dangerous slippery slope and your ego can take away with it. But I agree. I love that was probably the thing I garnished and take away most and I had more respect for him that he was an asshole and he was hard on his team. I love that because it's
Yeah,
like not everything is flowers. And I think it's good for people to see, especially more so now than ever, is for people to see that great things come from somebody pushing beyond themselves
yeah,
and whatever they do and how they do it. Everybody had a choice to play with him. They could have said, I'm out, but they chose to.
100%.
And it's not his fault that they chose to play with him. So I think it's all those things. And if this whole game, this whole thing is about winning, well, you see it in his eyes. He's not a happy person still to this day. I don't care who you say. Like he can
Yeah,
have,
yeah, yeah.
and he's got all the wealth, but he probably feels lonely. I would imagine, and that's okay because he's incredible at something. When you get really good at something and you're starting to amass a certain range of prestige or whatever it might be, do you feel more lonely or do you feel connected? And what's the feeling as you get bigger in the ranks of what you're doing? I bring these guys up because I see the same brilliance in what you do with your art as I see when I see Tony do that or when I see Jordan play. Like I see it in the way that you interact with the way you're on a bike. That's why I'm
I,
bringing these up.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I don't, I personally, I don't ever, like, I would never compare myself to those
Yeah,
people,
that's why I'm doing
but
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, I know you'd not
but
said that and would
there's,
think imply that.
yeah, but there's nuances of like, yeah, like I can relate, when I watch those documentaries, and it really kind of helps me as an athlete because there's like, oh, they went through it too,
Mhm.
because I feel like they've already gone through those steps because they're so far ahead of me in their careers. Whereas like I feel like I'm maybe only, halfway through and still experiencing these things for the first time. But there's definitely, it's just like it feels like a roller coaster, you can never like, there's things you can be really proud of and then things that you get really down on yourself for. And there's yeah, let's say I feel like I had a really successful year. I can sometimes I feel content for a while. It's a very short time usually. And then there's other times where like it might have been successful in other people's eyes, but for me I'm still like I feel like I've missed things, and then I get really down on myself and I'm like, then I start to like hyper focus on like, well, how do I fix this? You know, and I'm like, until
Mm.
I fix that, whatever that is, that missing link that I didn't accomplish in my mind, I'm like, you feel, you just kind of, you just don't feel, you feel melancholy. You're kind of like, you're not yourself. You're so fixated on this thing. And then there's also the aspect of like, when you do kind of reach like a high level and you, you're kind of at the top, you feel more fragile as well, because it's so easy to be taken down, because you know how hard it is to, climb back up to the top. It's like that's the hardest part. But as soon as you've kind of reached that level where you're like, wow, I've like feel like I've done something really special, it's like the next thing, you're kind of like, it's going to be way harder to go above this than just get pushed back down the ladder.
Mm.
So there is that kind of level of it too, is like trying to maintain an area as an athlete where you can consistently feel good about what you're doing.
Mm. I would say a happy athlete yields better results almost always too.
Agreed, 100%.
It
And when
takes
you
a
don't
lot
have
more
that
emotion.
pressure,
Yeah.
yeah, and when you don't have that pressure in the back of your head and you're just doing things like comfortably, like
Hmm.
without and that added, yeah, chirping in your ear or whatever, it almost comes easier and things happen naturally. But as soon as you have that pressure behind you, it's things can fall apart because it's too many stressors. Like and then like every athlete's got to go through that, and then you can persevere through that, but it doesn't. It's not easier. It's definitely
Hmm.
makes things a lot more challenging.
Do you sometimes regret choosing the route that you have with being an athlete?
No, definitely
Mm.
not. I mean,
You love it?
there's times where like you get injured and you're just like, why am I doing this? This is like, is this even worth it? But those are very short thoughts in my head, like,
Mm.
because quickly I realized like the amazing people
Mm.
that are around me because of my sport, and like the amazing experiences that I've got to do, and like I'm literally living like my childhood dream as a like it's like
Yeah.
I can comfortably live off
Mm.
this thing that I never thought was a reality. So it's, even
Beautiful.
if it ended and I had to start from square one and get a job and go to school or whatever, it's like
Mm.
I wouldn't give up those experiences for, for really anything. Like, it's definitely not worth the wealth. Like, I feel like I've made some okay money doing what I'm doing, but I'm like, it's not, it's like, it's always come back to like the lifestyle. Like if I had gone to school and became a doctor, I'd be spending on the money trying to have the lifestyle I have now. So I'm like, I could be
Mm.
broke as long as I can continue to live this lifestyle and be like completely happy. So
Love
that's
that.
kind of the thing that always like keeps me going, is like I'm super fortunate, and obviously I'd rather take those risks than live a life that I don't totally love. So
I love that. Beautiful. I mean, I know it's a tough question, but at the same time, the way that you've exposed this thing about your life, which is great, and you being able to have manifested this reality by your own actions, which is something that no one could ever take away from you. And that's something that when you have a well of wealth within yourself that you can constantly tap into, then you really have a vibrant life. I feel, it's like
yeah.
no one could squander that. Only you, but you've already amassed so much that would probably take a lot to undo that. You mentioned, and I've been typing some thoughts as you go. I love it. Your stream of consciousness is so pure. Your content, yeah, being content, a contentious cycle. You mentioned having those. When in your cycle of your possession of making a trick or executing one of the many videos and things that you've done, or doing one of the like tournaments or stuff like that. Where's the content cycle fit in that?
Usually, like, I mean, obviously, right after achieving something,
Mm.
and within that moment, whether it's like the feeling of doing it, or you're seeing like the clip of yourself doing it, or whatever it might be,
Mm.
I'd say like that moment's really good. And then like a short period after that, but then it could literally even be like the time it took from, say we filmed a clip and I did a new trick, or I did something in like a way that I've always wanted to do it, and we're fired up, we got it. and I watch it say on the camera, and I'm like, yep, that was it. Okay, I'm happy. But even like in that time from like driving home from the set and then putting it on the computer and then watching it again,
Mm.
like by the time I watch it again, usually I'm like, maybe it could have been better. Like that. So that's like how
So
whatever that period
from the
is, it's
trick
very short
execution to the
to like dropping the cards that night. And it's not always the case, but I feel like a lot of the
Sure.
times I'm already, because I've had that little bit of time to process what had happened.
Hmm.
I'm like, maybe then I start to think maybe there's more. Like what
Mm.
could have, what could be more? What is that next step? So yeah, sometimes it's really short lived.
Mm. Yeah, it can be, which is good. Which makes it special, I think. And I think what I'm trying to do is distill all these ideas because you're a prolific person and you're doing these things, but there's a mechanism within you that allows you to have this trait that very few people have, which is this possessive trait. That's why I asked about the content cycle, because if it was very long, it would be interesting, but I didn't imagine it to be very long. And it turns out it's from executing the trick to the drive home. So it's
Yeah.
very small. How does it work for you? Do you, as an athlete, rest is very important, of course, rest and recovery of some sort. What does that look like for you? And do you do certain types of rhythms of training and then rest, or does that work for you at all? Or how do you, because riding and mountain biking is a little bit different, say from like powerlifting or something where you can be much more quantified, but what's your rhythm of training like?
For sure. I mean, I would say I'm probably on the side of overdoing it than underdoing it. And I, and again, like just in my day to day riding, it's variable as well, because if there's like a week of rain and I can only accomplish so much, like maybe I dig a little bit and I get to ride when there's a window or something like that,
Mm.
then I get more rest. But if it's like, if the weather's nice and I can be riding, then I'm riding. But I also know, I kind of know my windows for that. Like, a morning session and an evening session, and probably a few hours each. And that would be like, I can accomplish things in those windows.
Mm.
So that would be, but I might, if I have like an amazing month of, the conditions are perfect for riding, then I'm riding every day for 30 days and 2 sessions a day. I'm pretty beat by the end of it.
Yeah.
But it's hard for me to like pass up an opportunity where, like, even like maybe on those days where I am a bit tired and I know I'm not going to have like the most amazing session, but I can still go like play around on something. And it's just like, it gets my brain going on like, well, what's the next thing I could try, or what could I play with here that I haven't done with in a while? And maybe just like, even those sessions where I'm like tired and I'm not riding great, but I'll come up with an idea that I can come back to when I have some energy or I have the right location. It's just kind of like, it's just getting out there and like immersing yourself in it. And then I feel like
Mm.
the ideas come, and that's the motivator to go back out and ride the next day and keep working on things. So I,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm just, that's my mentality, is like, even if I'm a little beat, I'll still go ride, as long as like it's a good, the conditions are worth it, and I can, like I'm feeling healthy enough.
What's your ratio of riding for joy, for the thrill of just purely riding as you did when you were a kid?
Um, it's tough. Like I feel like it is, like it always is, for joy, but then there's, when I'm on a project, it becomes serious, because there's stress and there's obligations, and there's objectives. So it starts to feel a bit like work, or like the time that it really feels like work is where I'm having to go do something that isn't something I would want to do on a daily basis. So like if it's like a personal project and I've like got tricks in my head, and it's, even though it's like there's risk and we've got to like accomplish these things, and maybe, we're you know it's self-funded, so I've got some, my money is kind of like, I'm invested in it. Like I could lose this money if we don't accomplish it, but
Mhm.
like at least it's like ideas that I want to accomplish and like things that I'm excited to do. So it doesn't really feel like work, even though like it's more stressful. And then like day to day riding, me trying to learn stuff just feels like what I would do regardless if it was my career or not, like I'm just motivated to go and do that. But if I like someone's like, oh, like there's this shoot you got to go on, and we want you to ride like this, and it's like we
Mm,
want you to do a manual down a dirt path because we think that's cool. I'd be like, that feels like work, you know, like that doesn't feel cool to me. I'm not like,
mm,
it's not inspiring or motivating. Like I'm not going to be proud of the content after the fact. That's where I'm like,
mm,
like it kind of kills me. Like it's like I don't want to do this.
mm. Even if it's the same thing as another thing, but if you didn't decide to do it, it doesn't seem interesting, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's
It's
how
just
I
like
am
it's
too. It's a
yeah,
total
yeah, yeah,
curse.
for sure.
We
Yeah,
sound like prima donnas, but it's literally the mechanism of the machine. You want to have the free will to say, no, I said I'm going to do that, not you tell me to do that.
totally, totally. And not to like devalue your brand by doing something like someone might be like, well, I think that's cool, but in your head you're like, no, this isn't cool. Like
Yeah.
I don't think, it's not me, that's not my brand. Do
Mhm.
I really want to put that out into the universe? So,
Yeah,
you
you're
know,
very cognizant of that too, which is one thing I really love, and something we will touch back on is that you, with a lot of the things that you do and put out in the world, you double down on yourself, and this is something that I also admire because if there's anybody that's ever, I always say this, like if anybody's going to put a risk on them, it's like if anybody, then it's got to be yourself on yourself, and you double down.
yeah,
So a lot of the content that you build and share with the world, like it's self-funded from the money that you've acquired. Then you bring in your friends and the gear and the things you need and the time you need, and that's why the crush happens. But then you're the one that decides it. So it's kind of like it's a win-win in a sense, as long as you don't tap in too hard. It's similar.
yeah,
Like it's interesting because that's how I approach filmmaking. It's like all self-funded with friends, and it's so pure that way, but then the pressure's so high, so it's like
yeah. I feel
it's
like
also
that's when you're going to
good.
have the best experience and
Yes.
also create that's really special content, because
Like
it's
spending
easy,
mom and
it's
dad's
easy to,
money for things, it's like you're not, and I say mom and dad as a figure of source because like you could say
totally.
it's a studio or whatever, a brand, and that's always amazing and nice when somebody's willing to support you that way, but there's a different sense of urgency and importance when it's you putting yourself, not only the trick or the film or the thing on the line. It's like all of those things. The pressure cooker creates the diamond.
Yeah, yeah. You become like so much more invested in it, I find.
Mm.
Um, yeah, it's kind of a necessary evil at times, but then, there's other times where you get cool opportunities with the commercial work or a brand that has a cool idea and they bring you outside your box a bit too, which is
True.
I feel like another important part of it. Something I've learned more and more is like I've done a lot of my personal projects. It's like it's kind of good to have someone pushing you, whether
Mm.
it's a filmmaker or a brand or some even like a creative agency bringing an idea to the table, and you're like, and you trying to figure out like how do I make this cool? Like they've planted a seed, but like in your head you're like you need to figure out like what's gonna how is this gonna be cool to you? Like at the end of the day,
Mm.
like how can I picture this coming across as like organic or just inspiring
Mm.
as an idea.
Of the source from within.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's a tough thing to do when you're in a space where art meets capitalism in a sense, where art means
totally.
money, where art meets timelines, where art meets spreadsheets, these kind of things. And it somehow, depending on how you look at it, it could totally dissect and dilute the art, or you can be really super pure about it and then just execute. But it is a fine line, I would say too. You have a real essence about your personal brand, and I can see that within yourself now, that there's a sense of control in a good way, that what you put out, you want it to represent yourself. How do you know? This is probably a hard question to ask, but how do you know when something's worthy of sharing with the people that admire you?
it it's just kind of like a feeling, like and then I'm critical of there's probably a lot of stuff I don't put out because I'm like even like a social media post, sometimes I'm like I'll start to be like, oh, this is kind of cool, and then by the time I've written caption and like done the whole thing, I'm like looking at the clip for the 10th time and I'm like, you know what, I don't like it anymore. It's just like
How often
there's
does that
those
happen?
times.
How often does that
more often
happen?
than you would, more often than you'd think. Yeah.
Well, that's good. That
Uh,
means you're distilling. Yeah. And you're
yeah.
finding the
But it's
best thing.
usually like if I can watch it and I'm like I'm happy about it, then I
Sure.
feel like it's worth sharing. Like
Hmm.
if
Less
if
is
I can
more.
picture myself in someone else's shoes being like, "Whoa, that was cool," or like what he did was impressive, or I like how it was created, then yeah, like if I can get to the end of the chain of whatever process it is to putting it out to the world and I'm still stoked on it, then it's good.
Is there
But
something with your personal brand that you wish you could do, but you haven't been able to do yet?
yeah, I mean, always there's always things to
Mm,
improve on.
yeah.
Um,
The
I feel
theme of
like
the
there's a lot of
podcast.
areas. Yeah, totally. I feel like there's a lot of areas where like um, I could capitalize more on the things I am doing because you spend a lot of time on things and you spend a lot of preparation as well to get to these points, and then sometimes I feel like, oh, like we should have captured this, or there should have been like an alternate kind of thing attached to this other thing we were doing, or maybe just even capturing the process a little bit more at times. Like I feel like sometimes, as much as I don't really love behind the scenes type stuff,
Hmm.
because I feel like sometimes it's a distraction from like the end goal. There are stories within all that can give that end goal a lot more context.
Yeah.
So there's times, but then it's like it's always you don't know when this stuff's going to happen and
Mhm.
like where those stories are going to unfold. So it is challenging, but I've tried more and more to just even where I can just like let's just do things and see what happens, and at least we have it, and if we don't like it then we just don't even put it out or whatever. But trying to be a little bit more like cognitive about this stuff could happen. Like there could
Mhm.
be cool moments that might make these big moments even better.
Mhm.
And then finding, there's the other side of it is like when we release content or release these moments, um, I was always like, up until the last few years, I feel like I was so focused on just creating the content and not worrying about what happened with the content after the fact.
Mhm.
I was just like, for me, it was all about just getting it done because I had this idea in my head and I just need to like get it out. But now being a little bit more, thought out about where do I want to see this content? Where does this content belong? Who's the audience that I want watching it? Um, and then putting a little bit more emphasis on that, like on the release and being a bit more patient with um, making sure it all goes out at the right time and to the right people.
Mhm. It's really hard to do, but it's a beautiful place to be in where we have the access to the internet. And it allows people like ourselves, these little islands, to have some sort of sovereignty in this like little niche of the world, using like platforms like Instagram and YouTube and all those kind of things. Do you feel like you're utilizing it to the capacity, or do you always? I mean, I guess I keep asking the same question, but it's like there's always going to be more. But
Yeah.
what's one of the things that these new tools have offered you or showed you that like gives you your ability to kind of do what you want to do? Is it the reach of
Yeah.
it, or the connection to a larger group of people, or
I mean, it's obviously like the reach is super important, but
mm,
like, and then it's sustaining it with being able to connect with people also on these especially social media spaces,
yeah,
um, continuously connecting and keeping people engaged so that they continue to support and follow you and then give me the abilities, with their support, it gives me the abilities to keep doing it. So it's a you know continuous cycle. I would say as far as like there's so much that changed in the media space in the last decade. I would say I'm definitely not capitalizing on it, but that's kind of where I feel like my core and my purity of how I picture the sport and I picture an athlete being stands in the way. Like YouTube's obviously become like a really big thing, and having a YouTube channel and creating a following and an audience on there is really important. But for me, I can't, I don't. I don't picture a way of doing it how I'd want to do it and it working. I know that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense or
No,
give you a
it's
lot
like
of
it doesn't.
information, but
Yeah, it's not the tool that you have in your mind with the way that you
yeah,
want to execute.
exactly, exactly.
Is it the abundance and oversaturation of YouTube? Because that's what turns me
Yeah,
off most of the time.
exactly.
I used to use
I
Vimeo a
don't want to
lot more,
be
but yeah. But
same.
then being a YouTuber is kind of like, I feel, and I'm not to be rude, but a lot of the YouTubers experience, like when I experience it, and they feel like used car salespeople, like where it's like smoke and mirrors, and they're just trying to hustle to capture your energy and
Yeah,
in your time, which is fine. And they use all these different like kind of like cheesy lack of originality feelings, I guess. And but YouTube is an incredible tool. The more I discover it, the
I
more I
agree.
realize just
Yeah,
how brilliant it is. And it's taken me a while to really see its brilliance, and why I'm starting to shift my energy personally into YouTube, because I'm like, it has a lot of the tools that I think are incredible, and they're smart and they're large, so they see what TikTok does, and then they'll acquire that in their own ecosystem, and they see what Instagram does, and so on and so forth, so they can keep relevant in the space of lack of attention spans and stuff, which
yeah.
is, yeah, like, yeah, it's, but
I couldn't agree more.
yeah.
Because I was on the same feeling. Like I was like everything I did, even if it went to YouTube and that was like the main hub, I was like everything has to live on Vimeo
Hmm.
because it was the experience was so much better. Like, and we
Hmm.
talked about like people watching it on a phone or something like that. I'm like,
Yeah.
but I want whatever I create, like at least there would be a place for people to have like the best experience possible,
Yeah.
and easy to access. And that seemed like Vimeo. Um, you don't sacrifice the content with Vimeo, but then the audience wasn't there. And then as time went on, I'm like, and like personally, I'm on YouTube and you just like, click refresh or you just type in somebody's name. Like, I want to watch this dude ride today or, this, filmmaker or whatever. And then you get all their work. Like, like usually YouTube has 90% of everyone's work
Yeah.
these days, at least. So, and then
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that's where like Vimeo becomes more challenging because if someone's just trying to watch bike videos of me all day, they're having to like trying to find some on YouTube and some on Vimeo and some on some other players.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, maybe I need to focus in on YouTube being like at least creating like a good album for people that want to watch my riding on YouTube that I can be proud of too. So then
Yeah.
I have a channel. There's like 2 videos on there, but like just at least add like a video or two every year
Hmm.
of like content that I'm really proud of, so that I slowly build out that presence on YouTube.
Yeah.
Not to have a fan base, but for people like me that were like, I want to watch my favorite rider. I'm going to type in their name, and I'm just going to, basically watch the playlist of videos that pop up
Yeah.
to get excited to go ride for the day or whatever it might be. But
Totally. And
that's
that's your
kind of
audience.
my yeah, and that's my current experience with YouTube. But I don't want to sacrifice my level of content to put
Mhm.
out continuous content to build up the fan base. So,
That's great.
if there's only a few videos out there for me, like I'm okay with that as long as people can find them.
Well, I think that what you're saying is quality over quantity kind of thing. And YouTube's all
Exactly.
about quantity over quality a lot of the times, unfortunately. And it's just like bash it out, kind of get it out. And I think what I'm starting to see and how I feel, because I actually tend to watch more YouTube than most anything nowadays, because it's so much more. I can watch, like last night I was watching documentaries on how like this crazy submarine, the latest, biggest submarine in American Navy is built. And it's just like insane. It can be underwater for
Yeah,
6 months and live without refueling for 27 years or so. I'm like, how is this possible? Anyways, I love
that's
those
crazy.
things because my brain just gets turned on by so many different things, and I love the stimulus, but I couldn't, the old way of doing that is going like on History Channel and maybe watching something about or engineering show or something. But like YouTube has just been like, I think you said it perfectly. It's got the library is larger, and it can allow you to get to the thing faster, but then the cost is quality. But this is where I'm thinking, and this is just me personally as I'm starting to go into this venture, is you control the quality and the
It's
quantity.
true. Yeah,
Your stuff might not trend amongst the algorithm of how YouTube works, is their whole thing is get people here and keep as many people here as long as possible. So we'll build an algorithm to feed that. And unfortunately, that's just kept up with all the garish, like candy kind of stuff. And so everything that's kind
Yeah.
of bad rises. But I do still feel deep in my heart, and I could be a complete romantic idiot, but I feel like, and this is where I'm seeing the difference between these two platforms, because I've been using Vimeo since the beginning and I still use Vimeo, but I feel like what I've noticed with YouTube, in a sense of being a content creator on the internet space, is that YouTube just has more tools, I think, and the bigger way to get to people. But it's up to us if we want to share things there and how much we want to share it. So, and the people that love and see what you do, like, they'll love and support it no matter what, you know? So that's just my thing. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No,
So,
and I agree with that. And
yeah,
like you said, I do agree. If people, no matter where I put my content, I think people will always support, or like at least the core fan base will be stoked.
yeah,
Um, but then it's like it's more of my personal satisfaction of like
totally.
feeling good about it and going back to my YouTube profile and being like, I like all these videos versus like, oh, I can't believe I put that video out
You can
or
always take
this
it out
video.
though.
Yeah,
You can always just make it
that's
like,
true.
yeah,
That's true. But I
you know,
still like,
and I think it was
I,
Chris Nolan that before one of his films came out, he went and visited every theater to make sure the IMAX was set up correctly. I think it was
right.
him or James Cameron. There's a level that you respect your audience to the level, but it also can be, be a hindrance unless you are really cautious
Consuming.
of it. But it's, yeah, I guess it just comes down to what your comfort level is, It's like, I'm just looking at the trends. And that's why I'm talking about this, because like having been a Vimeo user for so long, and then like seeing how YouTube has just kind of taken off to be its own thing, which is wonderful. And it'll eventually have its due and something else might come up. And, it's really what it's doing is just feeding consumption. It's like why TikTok and things like that. I don't use those, so I can't critique it too much, but I know basically what it is. But it's just short form, quick dopamine, addictive,
Yeah,
scrolly kind of
totally.
stuff, but that's for a certain demographic. But I really do firmly believe, and I think we talked about this as I released Chimera, I think there's a fan base that people that really like this different way of experiencing things, and you put those little testers out there. All you can do, as is like, as an artist, you just make the thing that you love with full freedom under your own merit, and you put it out there. And there's people out there that appreciate it, because people appreciate
100%.
great work.
And especially those little bits of like going outside the box and things standing apart,
Mhm.
it's just it's so easy to get interested in something that looks nothing like all the other stuff too, where you're like, well, what's this over here? I want to figure this out.
Yeah.
So it's always trying to obviously not create the same thing over and over. If you can start to create things that have a different look and a different style and like something that stands out from the rest, or a narrative that's different than what you've heard before, I mean, that's obviously the best way to get people's attention, but it's challenging these days with like how much content's out there and how do you stand out. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think obviously people are going to grab onto those really unique ideas, with both hands.
Do you feel there's a pressure with the amount of people that follow you to continually feed them your brand?
I think there's a balance. I
Mm.
mean, there's always a pressure because short attention spans more than ever. I think people kind of can easily just, yeah, just like not really. It's like if you're consistent with it, I feel like the fan base like rolls with it really quick because it's like they're already like thinking about you and they're already like excited about things you're doing if it's done right.
Mhm.
But as soon as you leave like that gap, it's hard to get everyone back like like really engaging. Like obviously they'll see it and then but it's like having that steady engagement. I find there is kind of like a bit of a window. Like I can roll out like a big project every 2 to 3 months, and I feel like I don't get the sense from the fan base that like, oh, I've been gone, if that's the gap. But if it goes longer than that, I start to feel like, the the fan base, some people might be like, oh, like finally a project, or like, oh, I didn't know he was like doing this anymore, or something. Like if it's like
Oh,
five,
you
six
still ride
months.
a bike? Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. You're like,
totally.
yeah, I'm still
Yeah, yeah,
here.
yeah. But yeah, it's kind of like if I can put out a, and that's the goal always is like, we'll spend a couple weeks to a month on a project and then kind of like give ourselves a break and think about the next idea and prepare for the next idea. And then hopefully in another month or two, we start on the next one. And if I can have like 4 or 5 projects throughout the year, I feel like that's a good flow of content and content I'm proud of at least. And then social is like that other, you feed that with, unique content that's outside the productions, but also maybe bits and pieces from the productions that didn't get seen or moments that you're really proud of. And so that's kind of like maintaining that social presence and some sort of like, yeah, just like what's going on, like
Yeah.
what you've been up to, like your current riding and like what that looks like. And that's obviously a really good way just to keep people interested in what's happening.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, it's tough because it's like sometimes because you realize, I mean, I think your process is like you meditate, gestate on the concept, you go and execute, but art, that's great, takes time, it takes evolution. And if you don't have enough time between things, you're repeating yourself because you haven't allowed enough time to fail and learn. And then your style changes, but your style won't grow in leaps if you allow too much time or not enough time.
Yeah.
So it's like this perfect blend. But and then yeah, with the way that this system works in regards to keeping relevant, is people like have a general, and we all do. I think we're all victim of it, that we just go like, oh yeah, that person's still doing those things. And I wonder what it is. I'm wondering, like, when I think about this stuff, like where the end is going to be and what that end is going to look like potentially, like not by end, like end of life. I'm just wondering, like, if we consume the things that we do, the rate that we do now, where is our cognitive ability going to be, and where is our mental state going to be? You know?
Yeah, or our expectations for content, like we should just be getting this all the time,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the crazy thing. I know you experience this, I'm sure, with your fan base, is like they just demand it and expect it and act as if like this free thing that you're giving them is something that they deserved or something, and it's like,
Totally.
yeah, how do you deal
Yeah,
with
it's
that?
it's it's crazy. I mean, even think like that it's a challenge. Like for
Mhm.
me, like I I want the stuff I put on social, like I still want to be proud of it, but then there's a lot of times where I run into a situation where I'm like, well, I could save this for the next video part because it's unique. And
Mhm.
then I don't want to like you don't want to waste a good idea on something that's just going to get eaten up and spat out so fast, where it's like
Yeah.
you could put it along with like a bunch of other great ideas that might have a longer shelf life,
Mhm.
or at least like it might actually be seen again. Whereas like a lot of this stuff we put on social is like it's there and gone. Um, and I think of it so much as an athlete, like when I watch other athletes that have, or even artists like musicians, everything like that, just they get on like a roll of like putting out like so much good stuff, like it's like over and over. Like you're like, for me, I'm like, because I know how hard it is to do that, and you see these people, and they just like it's like a constant feed of like amazing stuff, and you're just like, this guy's on a roll. Like this is crazy. How long is this gonna last?
Mhm. Sure.
It's but it's also inspiring. Like wow, this guy's doing all this stuff. Like okay,
Mhm.
like I got to step it up because like obviously it's possible to do more.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, almost always. Yeah.
always, yeah.
Almost always the case. It's always it's cool to be inspired by people, and it's cool to be humbled by people too, especially outside of your ranks of reality too, that are doing different things. I feel like I don't know, I stumbled on this like group of writers that come from LA and from like kind of like the ghetto, and then they just started crushing it, and they have a lot of adversities, and I was like watching, I found his feed and I was like, these guys, there's prolific people in every little niche of life. It's just a matter of finding them and like
Totally.
celebrating them as long as their intentions are pure, and it just reminded me constantly, like there's a lot of unfortunately mediocre people that are just drifting through life, that have aimless goals and don't want to take responsibility for the goals that they want. And then there's people that actually go after them, and there's this huge valley between the two, and
Right.
in that personality thing, and because like I'm sure you probably encountered it in different levels where people are, oh, I can do that, it's okay, like, yeah, okay, go do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. make it
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah. You seem very action oriented. Do you have a system in which you operate with your time? Because you're quite prolific and you do a lot of different things. We haven't even talked about your rally sport skill and athleticism as well. And that's a whole nother thing we'll get into in a minute. But do you have like a system in which you operate with your time? Do you set alarms? Do you have lists? Do you do it all mentally? How do you stay accountable for your own actions?
I feel like I'm, uh, maybe fly with fly by the wind a little bit, just in the sense of like, I, there's maybe certain times that are good for certain learning certain things or achieving certain things. So I'm like, okay, this feels like the moment to go do this. So then I do that. But I I definitely try to consistently feel productive. Like even if it's like I can't ride my bike, well, what can I do? Okay, I can get emails done. I can start planning the next shoot. I can, whatever, sort out things of, personal things that I need to get done so that when I go away next and come home, I can just get right back to riding and things like that. So I don't really I don't try and break it down too much. Like I have my rough schedule
Mm.
and that changes often. Like we said, fluid schedules.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely like a to-do list guy. Like,
Mm.
because there's just so much going on. And then I'm like, if I'm like, oh yeah, I got to do this, it's just, I just write it down.
Mhm.
And like, I get all the notes down. And then when I get those moments to sit down, I can like look at the list and be like, oh yeah, cool. I gotta just tackle this. And then I'll sit down and try and check those boxes. And that almost feels as good as like, you know, making sure I get a good ride in on the bike. Like
Mm.
that you feel productive. You're like, okay, cool. I'm working towards something. I'm one step closer to a goal. So,
Mm.
yeah, I would say I'm not super
Physical?
scheduled, but definitely, yep,
Physical writing
physical.
on paper?
I like to write things down.
Yeah.
Like even like
Same.
trick lists or like, even if I have it like on my phone, but
Hmm.
like nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, like even if I've written it down on my phone, like I'll actually like say like we're gonna shoot and like okay, there's a concept and I know what tricks I'm gonna do. I'm gonna write it out from like start to finish. Like
Mm.
if I know like everything of like how I picture it,
Yeah.
I want it to be, like I'll literally write it out and I'll put like how long I think, like we're gonna get 5 seconds for the two shots
Mhm.
for this one trick I'm gonna do.
Mhm.
And then I'll try and build out the timeline and the whole video and everything, but I like to like see it on physical paper.
Mm.
It's like it's hard for me to do it digitally.
Yeah, there's a disconnect that happens with the digital space that I have the same thing. I have a system that's kind of interesting. I've been adding to it. Would you like to know? I think you
Yeah,
might
yeah,
like this.
I
So I
love it.
have the physical book, right? And it's just a book with lines and I fill it filled with like priorities and a lot of it's just lists and they're all
Yeah,
like I call them A and B list priorities. I don't do anything below that. And usually that just means I don't do things that I shouldn't be doing with my time. And sometimes
sweet.
it creeps into life, obviously,
Yeah,
can't
but
help
you
it.
got to manage that. It's important. Yeah,
Totally. Because if your goal and your focus in life is to do a specific thing very well, then you shouldn't be doing anything other than that unless it offers another thing to you in a different way. And that can be as simple as like walking through the woods or taking a journey somewhere and experiencing that to give you a stimulation. But what I have been doing when I'm not around home or my physical list is I'll just have my phone and I'll have in my notes, I'll just have a to-do list and have the little circles on there. And if I
hmm,
wake up in the thing, I go, oh yeah, I need to do that. Bam. And I just put it in. I have thousands of things, even if it's simple as like, walk my dog or whatever, but it seems to help because that means my phone's always with me. And then when I get to my physical list, I look back at it and write it down and go, okay, I need to do that. It's kind of tough because I just fill my day so filled with so many different
yeah,
things. And if I get at least 80% of what I'm goal to get done, it's normally like 300% better than most people or myself without this system. Seems to work okay, but that's like a little additive thing that I did. A lot of this comes
yeah. I
from a
like
couple
that.
books that I've read. One of them was I mentioned it a lot in the podcast. It's called Eat That Frog, and it helps you. Like the book helped me identify like different priorities, different tasks of priorities, like where to task the priorities, and because it gets so vague when you're going through life and you're trying to be prolific, but you don't know where to put your time. But this book really kind of helped me go like, just don't do things that you shouldn't have to be doing, and
Target in on it.
yeah, as simple as like not giving certain people your time that aren't really
Yeah.
worth the time to talk
It's easy to
with you.
do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially with
Like
like an
someone that
audience.
maybe makes you feel not great, like, and then but you give them your time and you're like, well, I spent an hour with this person that doesn't like hasn't inspired me, or like maybe has a negative outlook, or maybe feel kind of off for the rest of the day kind of thing. And it's
Yeah,
like, I shouldn't have spent my time. You got to know when just to be like, nah, it's not happening.
vampire is what I call them. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Well, that's always tough
Yeah,
too, because especially if you're a nice person, it's tough to like not do those things. But at the same time, it's also good to, yeah, I guess that's just navigating life and understanding your value too. It takes a long time to
yeah,
understand your value, I feel. But yeah, those are like little mods that I do that I find is cool. But that's good that you write it down. I can picture you like manifesting and imagining and then drawing and writing out the flow of it. It's really a good way to approach it. I feel like you must go into the fourth dimension to come into our current dimension, and that's the mind and the imagination mind, or fourth dimension, or the infinite dimension, whatever you want to call it. So
yeah.
yeah. What would you describe as your favorite part of this whole process of creating things? Like when you put something out there to the world, what's your favorite? If you could just distill it down to that one moment, this is the most blissful moment of the process.
It's honestly like having an idea. Like obviously you've worked to like try and figure something out,
Mm.
and then it's kind of like the moment between having the idea and seeing the idea come to life.
Mm.
Like
Mm.
the start and end of it are kind of like funny because you're like, the start of it, it's like it's a process,
Mm.
and you're just whatever you're learning, and you're trying to dream up whatever it is. And then there's the final piece, which is always fun to put out. But like, I don't like, once there's a final piece, I'm already thinking about like the next thing. So I feel
Yeah.
like that hasn't really like, it doesn't really get me super excited. But like
Mm.
when there's that moment of like, you've pictured it, you've done all the work to make it happen, and then you actually see it come to life, it's just like such a rewarding feeling of like,
Mm.
sick. Like it was more like that. Just knowing that you could do it is like what I really like about it. It's like, all right, I was able
Mm.
to dream up this thing and make it a reality.
Mm.
Because there was obviously in the early stages, you don't know if it's possible yet. So
Mm.
I think that's like what really, again, it goes back to the challenge of things. Like you accomplished the challenge. You're like, well, I did it. I figured it out. Okay, on to the next one.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, that's kind of and it's also the collaborative with the people you work with. Like you get everyone around you that's involved feels the same as well. Like it's like a good energy between the whole crew of like, yes, like we're doing it, we're stoked. Like it's just like high vibes, and yeah, I don't know. It's just a really good feeling.
Love that. It's cool that the reaching into the unknown and pulling it out and executing and accomplishing it. That's the fulfilling aspect. That's really great. Yeah. I think there's no greater joy in life in a lot of ways than that right there. I think in reaching into yourself and the great unknown, not knowing if you can do it, but having the belief to execute.
Yeah.
And I think that's a feeling that very few people really truly experience. And that's truly what I think life is worth living for in a lot of ways.
100%.
Yeah. And if you
Yeah.
distill it
Yeah.
down that way, I think that's really what it is. Like it's just reaching within yourself. And yeah, that's really tricky. Would you say,
Yeah.
you mentioned that you're really self-critical. Do you know where that comes from? Childhood or?
Yeah, probably childhood.
Mm.
I got an older brother.
Mm.
He also rode mountain bikes professionally, and
Mm.
it was always like him and his friends were on the path of they're on like race mountain bikes, but
Mm.
there was definitely like they're older, they did everything better than me, and it was always like trying to get that um, respect from them, like, oh, you know what, he's actually pretty good, or like he did that good. Like that
Mm.
was always like definitely something I sought out, like from like him and his peers, because
Mm.
he's like 7 years older, so obviously like
Oh yeah.
a big gap. Like
It's
they're
like my
way
brother.
better than I.
Yeah, that's like my brother
Yeah,
and I.
totally.
Big gap. Mm-hmm.
So it was just like, I think that's kind of where it stemmed from a little bit, is like trying to get their respect for like I worked hard and I feel good about something, but if they said it was good,
Mm-hmm.
then it's like it feels even better.
Mm.
And then maybe that just stuck with me over time, and it's kind of maybe gone, I guess, beyond that a little bit, because now then I get critical of myself. Like some people say it's great, but you
Mm.
know, sometimes like
Could be harmful though.
I'm like, is it like, was it really as good as it could have been, or are you just being nice to me, you know?
Can you trust what
Yeah.
people say, or do you feel like that's part
I
of the problem?
I could trust my close friends.
Yeah. Okay.
The people people that are real, like,
Hmm.
and like obviously it's the
No
people I'm
ulterior
closest
motive and
to.
shit. They just keep it real.
Totally.
Yeah.
And like honestly, like when we're shooting and someone tells me like my style was whack or
It
I
didn't
need to
land
do it
right.
again,
Mm.
I'm like, I'm not offended at all. Like
Mm.
I'm like, thank you. You know, but if someone's like, and I know that they're doing it like, oh yeah, I thought that one was sick.
Hmm.
I'm like, I hate that. You know, like it bothers me. I'm like, I want you to be like, even if, because I'll know that it wasn't
Yeah.
most of the time, or if it was, you know, like usually I know when it's a good one. I usually know it's a bad one. And
Mm.
if you like bullshitted me on either end, then I'm like,
Mm.
I don't trust your feedback anymore because like it
Mm.
was obvious, you know. But
Sure.
like when like there's those times where it's kind of critical, you're like, oh, it felt pretty good to me, but then there might have been an aspect that they see from their angle that wasn't great. Like maybe I needed to change something up because that angle
Mm.
shows, you know, maybe an unflattering thing.
Mhm.
And that's where I need them to be like, hey, like I liked when your head was down a little bit more on this trick. It just looks better, you know? And then I'm like, okay, cool. So
Yeah, it's a thin line, I'm sure, too, because there's one way, and then also it's easy for somebody that's not doing what you're doing to criticize. But at the same time, that's too true. There's an objectivity to it, as long as it adds to the distillery of the concept. Like if it distills back down into the core of it, and it adds to it. So, but it's tricky. I always feel like it's very dangerous to put your happiness in the hands of other people. You know.
it's
Mm.
true. It can be super dangerous.
You have to do it to
But
the
then
right people, though. It's like,
that's the thing is you got
yeah,
to surround yourself with the people you trust
yeah, lions,
and yeah, exactly.
kings. You have to only be
Yeah.
around the kings only. If
Yeah,
you're trying to be
totally.
the best, and you should always be. I always feel like you should surround yourself with people better than you in a lot of ways, because I gained a lot of
100%.
this logic and knowledge from jujitsu. Jujitsu is like, as you gathered the skills and the ranking, you would always you would always roll with somebody below you at the same level and above you, and you would blend those three experiences into one. But you needed to remember where you came from, where you currently are, and where you need to go, and be humbled by the top. But then,
Absolutely.
but be thankful for your progression from below. But how do you do that with friendships? I think it's so difficult. But I think a lot of that comes to like, I guess, I'm curious what you think of how you navigate this, but like friendships, how do you navigate good friendships, core friendships? Like what would you, and how many do you think you would have if you were to like really quantify?
Yeah, it's tricky.
Loaded
Like
question.
that's a loaded question. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
but
mean, a lot of it is, I mean, there's like the intuitiveness of like, I think this person's a really good person.
you feel
But
it.
then, yeah, you feel it. And then like you go through the motions, obviously, like you come out of school and you get new friends, and then maybe you figure out some of those friends aren't people you want to be affiliated with. And then you meet other friends and you're like, hey, and they've never really gone away. And you go through steps where like, you kind of go through those repetitive steps of like who you involve and really bring into your life, and then people that stay and don't stay.
Yeah.
And then at this point, I'm like, I've had a lot of close friends, and we've all been put in these like, we've been put in the trenches together, where it's like these really challenging moments. And like, like I, for instance, you didn't meet him. But like Ian Collins, a photographer we were with, he's
Met
been
him.
there for, yeah, exactly.
Mm.
He's been there for some of like the heaviest things I've done on a bike, like
Mm.
really like scary moments,
Mm.
and like heavy moments. And then one of the builders that was on that project, who you didn't meet, Evan Young, who's like, he's built like majority, I would say like 90% of like the big projects I've done, and like in some of like the gnarliest, like all my rampage runs, and like
Mm.
some of the gnarliest things I've done, like he's the one that's like crafted it. And then I'm relying on him like in his work of like basically putting my life in his hands. Like,
Crazy.
hopefully he built this right because like I'm the one riding it, and like
So
those dudes where
gnarly.
you've literally like you've been so like in these really heavy moments with and like stressful moments, and then you come out the other side and it's like they're still just as close of friends or closer friends than they were, before. It's like it didn't tear us apart. It didn't,
Mm,
it just made like that relationship kind of grow stronger. So
mm,
those are where like I'm like those are people I'm gonna have in my life forever. Um, and those
mm,
relationships that I'm like really like happy, again going back to like my career, and like I got those relationships because of what I do. And like I don't know what my life would look like if I didn't have people in my life that I felt um, were really good people, and I could rely on like those guys. So
probably wouldn't be that great.
uh, it wouldn't be that great.
No, it wouldn't.
So and then
Yeah. You're
and
only
to
great
loop
by the
back on
people you
like
surround yourself with. I really firmly
that's
believe that.
exactly it.
Yeah.
And I really like I look at all those guys and I'm like, there's a lot of aspects that I wish I was like them, and
Mm,
and in a lot of ways, because they
mm,
just are incredible people. And
mm.
feel very fortunate to have a good circle. And my circle is probably it's pretty big. Like I have a lot of amazing people around, but I'd say my really close circle is probably you know 10ish people.
Yeah, that's
You
wonderful.
know,
That's a blessing
yeah,
to have 10 close kings, queens in the
totally,
corner.
yeah.
Yeah.
And again, these are all like insanely skilled people, whether
Yeah.
they work with me or they don't. But like
Yeah.
everyone has such a like amazing skill, and unique skills at that matter.
Mm,
It's pretty cool. And so I'm really fortunate that I get to work with a lot of them, and
mm.
they're just my friends. Like we hang out when we're not working, and I can bounce ideas and pretty much anything off of. So it's pretty good.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think a friend of mine says, "Tell me who your friends are, and I'll tell you who you are." That kind of saying, it's like
Yeah,
says a lot about you, the company you keep, and oftentimes, and I think this is something that I've tried to talk with my daughter about, and anybody that I'm close to about, especially that is wandering or exploring through life. It's like you got to surround yourself with people of quality, because they're only going to add to your life value, and they're going to give you so much, and they're going to humble you and grow with you and go through the things. It's like build good memories and establish trust and resilience through the different difficult times, and also celebrate the beauty and bounties of life too, which is just as important as the trials and tribulation side of things too, which is often overlooked, I think, too, which is tricky. But
yeah. No, I 100% agree.
mm,
And even it's been interesting, um, like being an athlete, and having my friends from like the sports side, and then getting into production and
mm,
having those friends, and then
mm,
now motorsports,
yeah.
and then having kind of like all those worlds collide.
Mm,
And then you have, a scenario like even last year we traveled with like a bunch of, you know, the people I work with on the production side very often, and then some motorsports people, and then them all like all my close people that sometimes they never actually had a chance to meet yet,
mm,
but then them meeting and being like, and then kind of like stepping back and both parties being like, man, you've got some really cool friends. Like those
mhm.
are really good people. And you're like, it makes you feel like good about like, you're like, I made a good choice. Like I to trust these people and bring these people into my life, like
Yeah.
how I have it. Cause if you can, both parties are looking at it like that, you're like, okay, sweet. Like
Yes.
I think both these people are awesome, and they think each other's awesome. So I'm obviously on the right path of like surrounding myself with the right people.
That's probably one of the most amazing feelings for me is when I introduce my tribe to another tribe that I love, and they're
Yeah.
commingling. It's like, yes, I love it. It makes me
It's
so
just
happy.
easy.
Oh, it's easy. Yeah. And like for the most part, it's like, of course they're going to love each other because they're cut from the same cloth, because we're all connected. And not everybody's on those levels too. Nothing against people. It's just everybody's at a different
No,
level,
totally.
different level of
But
interest,
it's
and we all have different fascinations with things, and yeah,
yeah.
but that's
But it's
cool.
nice when it works and everyone blends.
Yeah, extended
Just
family too. It's hard
yeah,
enough to go through
exactly.
life and be amazing. It's harder with people that are sucking the life out of you too. So, yeah,
Right?
yeah. I
Yeah.
remember.
I mean, I wouldn't be here with all those people without all those people,
Oh,
right? Like
absolutely.
they play a massive part in everything I do. So
I love that when we had when we had sat and I love sharing a meal. That's one of my favorite things to do, especially when I am introduced to somebody. And this is the first time we had met physically. We had talked, casually through like chat and all these kind of things. But when we had a chance to sit and eat, that was one thing I was really taken back and loved about your energy is for the level of skill and ability that you have a very calm, collective, humble nature, which speaks bounds, and it could be potentially the way you're upraised and all these things. But how do you manage to keep your ego in check?
I just don't really think what I'm doing is like anything that special.
That's a way to do
I
it.
know it's like a I know it's like it's a skill and this and that, but
Sure. Well, you
I'm
could
not
be.
saving the planet.
Yeah.
I'm not like I'm just riding a mountain bike and it
No
makes
one
me feel
really is
good.
saving the planet, by the way.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
But I look the thing is like I almost look at it as like I'm the person I'm just inspired by the people I look up to, and
Mhm.
that's like why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm like I feel like I'm just doing a part of what they're the bigger picture of what they're doing.
Sure.
So I'm just like I'm more yeah, and I know people feel the same about like they watch me and they get inspired by me to get out there or to like to achieve something that they're really passionate about, and I that's amazing feeling to me. But
Mm.
I don't feel like I'm that person, like that doesn't. I'm always looking at like all these other amazing people, and I'm like, oh, I aspire to be them,
Mhm.
and I think that's kind of my. It's like the feeling of living, living in someone's shadow always.
Yeah.
It's like you're never gonna feel like you're the king if you're always in someone's shadow.
It's
And
true.
not in a bad way. Like
No.
I like having these artists and these athletes and just like really talented people to look up to and kind of chase down like aspects of what they're doing and being like I want to understand how to do a bit of that
Mhm.
or accomplish something like that. And so I think that just keeps me at my like I'm content, I'm happy what I'm doing, but I'm like it's just, like I don't think that what I'm doing is spectacular by any means.
I love that. That's how you stay humble. Absolutely. Yearn for more. Put yourself where you should be, which is just in a place of humility and being,
Yeah,
being amongst the people of everybody. And, but then also celebrating the fact that you have a uniqueness to it and your possession of craft has led you to some really amazing results. And you've taken what potentially could have been just a casual hobby and turned it into a lifestyle and a living. Are you still close with your brother?
yeah, we're still fairly close.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't see him as much as I wish I did, but
Well, you're busy.
um,
I can imagine your
yeah,
schedule's got to be insane. I know you go off and then
exactly.
you do rallies and stuff, and we should definitely get into that. You've been riding
Yeah,
with Trek for quite a long time. Mountain biking, since you started, has had a massive flux. And I feel like the last 5 years, engineers have really stepped into this world of mountain biking and created these insane progressions in it. What's your thoughts on that? And also
yeah,
riding with such a really awesome team like Trek, or just with a company like Trek, because they've been around for a very long time and they have a massive scale, and yeah, they're quite a famous brand.
yeah, exactly. It's like you said, the progression in the mountain bike world just with equipment is it's insane. Like it's rapidly improving, but it has been over the last 5-10 years.
Yeah.
Um, it's crazy to think like you buy a motorcycle and like a dirt bike, but like you could buy a dirt bike from 5 years ago and it's not really much different at
Yeah.
this point. But
Yeah.
a mountain bike, like if you buy a mountain bike from 5 years ago, it's basically
Paperweight.
irrelevant. Like
Yeah.
yeah, it's it doesn't carry the value of like what the new bikes are or the quality of what the new bikes are.
Yeah.
So it's cool to see it just grow and like obviously I'm really into motorsports, so the engineering and the equipment side of things is like really interesting to me. So I definitely love that mountain bike kind of has that like almost like F1 feeling to it at
Yeah.
times, where like you can really uh, indulge in like or just get really specific with the suspension and the brakes and the geometry of the frames and the materials you use and everything like that. So
Mm.
that's been cool. And then, yeah, and so I started with Trek when I was, I don't know, super young. I was like 14. I think it was like 2005 or something like that. It's
Mm.
like I kind of got on flow with them. Um, and at the time, at least for like the West Coast and like mountain biking in general, Trek wasn't that big in like the mountain bike space.
Mhm.
Obviously, road they were huge. Like they were one of the biggest bicycle brands, but mountain biking they were still like maybe a little bit behind at that time. So for me, I was like I moved from a brand that was like when I was racing, I was getting some flow from another brand that was like really established in like the mountain bike and especially the free ride space. And then I moved over to Trek, and it was kind of like the right people were there, and I got that feeling, but the the product was still like needed to improve to catch up.
Mhm.
And then but that was like I knew the right people were there. Like it was just like a good time for them, and like within a couple years, like their products became some of the best mountain bike products. And now like they're obviously still one of the biggest brands and still innovating and making some of the best stuff. So I'm like so happy that I started when I moved into the more like the free ride slope style mountain bike space, that I started with them. And like almost 20 years later I'm
It's crazy.
still with them, and like really happy about every day I get on my bike and I'm like I ride the best bike. Like I
Sick.
couldn't ask for a better bike. um, and being able to, also help out with, developing bikes or giving them my
Mhm.
feedback, and being that like a very minute part of like people's experience when they get a new bike, like maybe something I was able to give them that help the bike be more reliable or ride just a little better or something
Mhm.
like. So it's fun to be a part of that, and have this really close relationship with the brand for so many years. And so yeah, I'm super fortunate there.
That's awesome.
And it's been a crazy experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, damn, I didn't realize it was that long. You're coming up on almost 20 years. And the fact that you've been riding with the same brand for that long, it should say something. There's a quality of the people that are attached to that. And it's not like you're being, like, cause like that's really rare for an athlete to stick with something for that long. Cause the ebbs and flows of things, businesses and companies, especially with I mean, when I first got into mountain bike, I couldn't believe how expensive it was. That was the first thing. I was like, I can't believe that this thing costs this much. And but it's just because there's a small monopoly on it. I could have got a full
Yeah,
on dirt bike and
totally.
had time of my life. At the same time, I'm not using my legs, and it's a different experience, obviously. And you can't really even compare the two in a lot of ways, in my opinion, having rid a little bit of mountain dirt bikes and then a lot of mountain bikes. But the engineering was one thing because I love, I'm similar to you in my mind. I love to understand how and why things work and why this material and what's this geometry do and why did this work better than that, and compression rates and just angles of the down of the seat tube and all these kind of things, and we talk about it at a little bit of length as I sent you little sneak peeks of my time trial cycle that I'm building. And like we're talking
Yeah,
about
so
like
sick.
waxing chains and why that things and marginal gains and like all of these little things, and it's in my mind, and maybe it's just my shallow approach to these things, but like, and maybe not. And it's cool to hear that from you is like when you get on your bike or you look at your bike, if it gets you inspired or motivated and you want to just be a killer on it, it's like, that's almost the kick that you need sometimes to get up and go do
100%.
it. Yeah. And if you're riding like a hoopty that sucks, you're just like, this whack. That doesn't help. But if like I was telling my wife, like, because I grew up with real humble beginnings, everything that I've acquired was amassed through action, and being able to be in this age in my life and being able to build the things that I can see in my mind and make it the style that I want is like, it's like nothing better. It's like full on design, it's like
Totally.
living and breathing the design. You do a lot of like collaborations with artists and stuff for like, I would consider, I guess you would say it's the livery for the bikes and stuff, the release and the feel of the bikes. Is that correct, the term?
Yep,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's great when you can align with an artist and you can put something down.
Mm.
A lot of the times it's still an artist, but working with the design team at Trek, like they have a crazy like essentially paint house in-house. So they do custom bikes, like even it's called Project One, but like
Yeah,
even
Project
like
One's sick.
anyone can literally just go on their website and like
So
design
sick.
up their bike. It's like wild.
Yeah.
But so essentially we do that with them, but we can throw crazy ideas at them and see what paint techniques they have, and they'll mock it up, and we'll make some changes, and then it'll go to paint, and you'll get this crazy custom bike, which is pretty sick. But yeah, every once in a while I can bring in some friends or some artists that inspire me, and basically to help create that art that they can put down, and you know throw it on the frame and make it this real living thing, which is really special.
Yeah, it's like a moment in your life with the work of art, almost like a literal frame of art, which is pretty
No,
cool.
it is, and
Yeah,
they really do hold like a period of time. Like
yeah,
I save all the bikes, like they're all up in my like shop, and it's like
that's awesome.
it's funny to walk around, like even with like my friends or people that know mountain biking, and they see the bike, they're like, oh, that's the bike from this and this, and then oh, that's the bike that did this, and
That's so
you're
sick.
like, cool, that bike literally has its own like,
It's like a journal
you
entry,
know,
time
exactly, yeah,
capsule.
it's cool.
Mm.
So
It's a smart
yeah,
thing
it's just
to
like for
do.
those things, they're like they're priceless, right? Like
Mm.
it's like the little bit of money you could get for that bike after I've ridden it. It's like I'd rather just keep those memories, because those are like it's like almost how I remember those moments too, because so
Sure.
much happens and you just easy to like just like forget about it.
Yeah.
But then I go into the shop and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot we did that, and that was yeah. It's like the bike reminds me of those like cool special moments.
Mm. Do you like to work and service your own bikes, or do you not dabble with that too much?
Yeah, no, I'm super into it. Like I wish I had a little more time to do it. Like, I mean, I work on my bikes quite a bit, but even like on motorsports, I'm like, I don't really have time to just like hang out and work on the car. But
Oh
I
yeah.
would love
Yeah.
to get better at
There's a whole
that. Like,
team for that. Yeah.
there's a whole team, but
Yeah.
it's like during the event, like we still need to service the car.
Oh yeah.
Like when we aren't actually at service with the technicians, like there's things that we might have to fix quickly between stages. So like
Oh yeah.
the more I can understand it, the better. And it's the same with the bike. Like you might be out there on a shoot, like obviously Bobby
Yeah,
hooked us
Bobby.
up at
That's
the
right.
right. Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
that's how we
Pedal
connected
Tech.
for breakfast.
I love.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like
I love Bobby.
shout
Shout out
out
to
to Bobby,
Bobby.
but
Yeah. Came to the
he like
rescue that
saved us
day.
because came to the rescue, like
Yeah.
broke apart, couldn't find the part, he brought the part, and then I had I made like a little makeshift stand and I fixed my bike and we got back to shooting. So like you kind of need to know how to do it.
Yes.
And I do enjoy it. It's cool. Like I like being hands on with it,
Mhm.
whether it's like working on bikes or helping build the jump, or helping collaborate with the filmmakers to create the project. Like it's just nice to feel like connected to whatever it is.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it's important, especially just
it's
knowing the
important for sure.
nuance of it. Yeah. I had a NSX at one point in my life, and we pull. By we, I mean me and my friend Nick, who is the technician, and we pulled apart the entire engine. And before we had done that, I would drive the wheels off that thing because I didn't think about all those things. But I tell you, it actually ruined my driving experience once we put it all back in there. I thought of all the thousands of little pieces because that engine's so complicated. And I was like, whenever I'd redline it, I would be like,
Yeah,
before
you're
I
like
could
all
just
the things
throttle
that
that.
could go wrong.
Yeah, it blows my mind that the tight tolerances of these things are so finite and so small and so microscopic that it's incredible. All these moving pieces, they actually come together and become this one piece. And it's something that you can easily take for granted if you don't do it. And I think that's why I love the fixed gear riding. I love how simple and pure and clean it is but getting more into like, because I just installed the wireless SRAM access system
Yeah.
and it's so cool. Like it's the future in a lot of ways. And I love that there's no cables and it's just a whole nother way of interacting with the bike now. And a lot of my friends that I've shared these things with that aren't cyclists, but I'm like, yeah, it's wireless. And they're like, no way, I never heard
You're
of
like,
this. And this is the coolest. So
yeah,
yeah.
clicking the button, it's making the little zzz, zzz
Oh, it's
sound.
the
You're like, it's
coolest.
sick.
Yeah. And I'm like riding at pace and I'm like, and there's no cables. And as I'm clicking through the gears, I just know that it's really cool. And I love that
Yeah.
engineering side of things and knowing that somebody out there is thinking progressively and going, well, why are we using cables in 2023? Why don't we do away with all this extra stuff and make it smarter and use the technology of the day? And yeah, and that's been cool. And it's been really cool. Like Bobby and I've been a lot of time at this shop, like hanging out and just talking. And it's another reason to engage and meet new friends and have great conversations. And sometimes it's bigger than the riding, of course. It's about life and your process through life. And I think that's why I love bikes. I feel like it's a metaphor for life in a lot of ways, this cycle of life, I guess that's just my looking at it. But yeah, you, I would like to talk about working with Vermont Motorsports. Is that what that's Subaru, right?
Vermont Sports Car.
Sports car, sorry.
Yeah, Subaru Motorsports, Vermont Sports Car.
This is the team. These are your sponsors. This is your race team that you're associated and race with, right?
Totally. Yeah. So I've always kind of been super passionate about motorsport, especially rally, like stage rally. So it's basically stage rally.
Sorry, I don't like. At what point did you see this, or was it playing a video game or watching something happen?
I mean, yeah, like obviously you play Mario Kart or something. You're like, oh, it's cool drift. Yeah, but no, mainly like where I grew up, British Columbia, a lot of forestry roads. Like forestry is really really big out here.
Yeah.
So we use the forestry roads to kind of access the mountain bike trails. And then just kind of I grew up in Whistler, but like on either end of Whistler, there's Squamish and Pemberton, which are only like a half hour away from Whistler each. And there was two like rally teams. So Subaru Canada Team Rally or Team Canada Rally, whatever. And then there was like a privateer team in Pemberton. But they're both quite competitive in the Canadian Rally Championship. And we'd be on the logging roads, and you just come across a rally car, or you'd see them, like you'd see a big dust trail up the mountain, and you'd hear the rally car. And so that's kind of like how I got introduced.
How
like
sick is that?
I don't have a driver's license. Like I'm super young, I'm like pedaling my bike up the hill after school, kind of thing.
What an impression!
But it was just like. But obviously,
fast
as like a young
loud
kid, you're like, that is cool. Like, you can't help but like want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
So I got my license, and then I had moved to Squamish. Probably when I was like, I don't know, I was like 17, 18. I was like trying to move to Squamish, and then a friend of mine, when I was moving to Squamish, was like, oh, you should go by the rally shop. And I introduced me to the guys at the rally shop. And I pretty much like walked out of there with a rally car. Like I was like, this is cool. Like I bought like, just like really like bone stock, like production car, but like ready to go. Like I could go to a race if I wanted to. It was a 2002 WRX.
Okay.
Like
bug eye. Yeah.
Just black.
Oh, black. Okay.
Yeah. Black one, and it was like
STI motor.
No, it was just a stock WRX motor, like stock everything, but it had suspension, wheels, tires, skid plate, and all the it was caged with all the appropriate safety equipment.
Oh, wow.
So it was like, pretty just get me going, but like a good car, like
those are pretty stout too. And if you don't overboost them or mess with them,
it was a great chassis.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. So it did me well. Like I had that car for like a lot of years. I didn't race a ton, but it was like I just kind of like figured it out. Like, met the right people and was like got involved with like a small rally club in the area and went to some rallycross events, and then went and did some stage rally events. And I do 1 or 2 events a year, and then it started to be like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, and then I started to improve with the vehicle, like got into some faster cars, and then, it was all this hobby passion, and I would just like,
there's
like
a trend
anything,
here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like it's similar to mountain biking, where it's just
Brandon
like
turns his hobbies into a passion, into a career.
Yeah. So eventually, it was 10 years later, let's say, because I started in about 2010, and then in 2020, there was an opportunity with Vermont Sports Car, Subaru Motorsports USA.
So 10 years.
It was
a 10 year
10 years apart.
10,000 hours and then yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. Just seriously, it's a very good way of putting it.
on the day.
And yeah, Travis was basically number one
Pastrana.
driver.
Yeah.
Pastrana
Yeah.
was number one driver on the team, and they kind of introduced me in as like driver two and like an up and coming, younger driver
Mm.
that they saw potential in. So
Mm.
we obviously had to deal with the restrictions of COVID that year. So there was
Oh yeah.
maybe only like a half season, but it was still like a really amazing experience. Like getting familiar with the team, getting familiar with the car,
Which car
trying to get
was
up to
this?
speed. So we're same car we're still in currently. It's uh, basically a 2020 STI,
Hmm.
like rally, full open class rally spec car.
This
It's
was the
like,
one Ken
you
Block
know,
was driving, right? Same,
so
similar.
yeah, exactly. You
Yeah.
did the art for that one, exact
Mm.
same car.
Okay.
In 2021, Ken joined that kind of team. He was like his own outfit, but he was in the exact same car as us,
Mhm.
and basically had the same technicians and everything as well. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Support,
same
support stuff.
car. Yeah, so
Wicked car.
we're in like yeah, it's amazing. And we're in a modified version of that car
Mm.
now for 2023 with like some real changes, and
Mm.
then they'll introduce a new car in a few events here, which is super exciting.
Oh, okay, cool. Something on the
So
horizon then.
yeah, yeah,
Sweet.
exactly. Pretty rad.
Yeah. What a
But yeah,
dream
it's
come
been
true then. So when was, can you tell me again the year that you got the bug eye? When did you get the bug eye?
2010.
2010.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay. So 2010, then all the way to 2020, and then doing it now and then being a part of that. That's got to be pretty surreal. Because I watch your race
yeah,
footage and I'm
it's
just
just
like, I
crazy,
don't know
man.
how Brandon's doing this. And it's the same how I feel like with anybody at racing. But when Ken would send me footage or I would see stuff of Ken doing it, and I've even been in his the Cosworth, and it's really surreal. It
Sick.
doesn't make much of any
Yeah,
sense, honestly.
no,
Yeah. how do you
yeah,
how do
and
you how do you juggle that again? I think it's the flow state that you've been used to with, but I don't know, can you compare what you do on a bike to the car? Are they similar or different, or how do you navigate that?
I used to always say like they were anything alike. I was like, it's nothing alike.
Yeah.
But the more and more I do it, I'm like, honestly, it's just really it's just concentration. Like
Mm.
once you've come to grips with the equipment and you're comfortable, you're kind of just maintaining the same concentration, whether it's mountain bike or rally car. Like
Mm.
it doesn't really feel any different other than that like the actual mechanical physical movements that make it happen.
Mm.
um but there was like kind of, I guess, like when I was rallying in the first 10 years, I never did it enough to be like always 100% confident in the car, and the car's always changed, and I
Yeah.
wasn't super good with the setup, and there's all things I'm learning, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, it always felt different to me because it was like it was foreign. I'd go from riding a bike, which is like fairly simple if you think about it. You're standing there and you've got the brakes, and you shift gears
I love
less.
how
So,
simple you make it.
but in a rally car,
Please,
you've
if
got
you
like a
haven't, if you're listening to
co-driver.
this and you haven't seen what Brandon does on a bike, please stop and go and look at it. And the way he explains it's so hilarious. I love that. Okay, but yeah,
But
in the
but for
core of it,
me,
yeah, sure, of
yeah,
course. And I love that you can distill it like that, which is again a proof to the brilliance of it. But yeah, but the car, of course, is so complicated. Yeah.
you got the gear shift, you
Hmm.
get the steering wheel, pedals.
Brakes, clutch.
There's a lot of
Well, no clutch.
yeah, a lot of yeah. There'll be a clutch still,
Oh, there'll be clutch, huh?
only to start the car, or hairpins and stuff like that. But
Oh,
we
okay.
use sequential gearbox.
Sequential. Yeah, I was gonna say.
So yeah,
Yeah.
so you're flat shift, hard on brakes, downshift.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Do you do a lot
But
of
then you got a
sim
co-driver
practice as well?
a little bit.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
I try to. I don't feel like I learn from the sim, but
Okay.
it's a good way to stay fresh. Like
Sure.
go before an event just to feel the inputs of like using gas, brake, clutch, steering wheel, while listening to notes and looking at a line. And
Crazy.
it just kind of like it just puts you back in
Mm.
that mindset of like, okay, this is what we're doing.
Hmm.
So it's a little refresh, but
It's a
yeah,
flow state
it's
though,
nothing
huh?
like getting in the car. The car, you feel so much more. Yeah, exactly. It's
Mm.
trying to get in that state where you can concentrate for a long period of time, and it feels like easy. You don't have to think about making the input. You're just doing it naturally.
So wild. I'd also encourage everybody that's listening to this, go watch Brandon drive these cars. It's really surreal. And in those videos, you can kind of get a little sense, because I think of the sound. I think the sound has a real visceral quality, but still, it doesn't even, you can't feel the lateral G and the pressure.
Yeah,
I remember when I was in the Kazi when Ken was driving it, and I think he was driving it pretty fast. I don't know if he was, I don't know what he was doing, but it was still, I
yeah,
think it was recce, so it was shaking down the car. And we were doing, I would look over and see the speedometer, and he was going like around 90 to 100. We're going sideways through somebody's yard, and it was just like, what the hell is happening here? It didn't make sense, because I've never been sideways in a car going at that speed through somebody's
totally.
driveway or through somebody's like area of their house. And yeah, and when I watch you guys drive and Travis and stuff, it's just so, it's amazing the level of true focus that it takes to really, as you mentioned, take in all this stimulus, which is, oh, like left rear is drifting slightly as I'm entering, but I know I need to articulate the counter steer here. And well, now I need to either let off or add into it or count, like, where is my RPM at? I'm at the best place where the car needs to be, so it's neutral. It's crazy. It's really,
Yeah,
it's, it's a thing. Yeah.
there's a lot to take in, and it's just like so much seat time to get to that feeling where
Mhm.
you don't have to think about those little things anymore. Where like you just by instinct know what you need to adjust at that moment
Mhm.
without having to be like break it down like, oh no, wait, do I do this, do I do this? It's like no, you just do it.
Yeah, because you can't
But
think
yeah,
like that,
it's
because it's too. You have to
no,
almost, like you said, or we both, or I maybe I suggested it, but it's a flow state,
the
because
flow state. Yeah,
yeah, there's the only way to take in all that stimulus and receive it in real time, to act upon it, to be progressively competitive. So,
totally.
do you?
But it's crazy what those cars can do.
Oh, it's
Like
insane.
obviously you got to experience it, and it's like
Well, just the
until
Kazi,
you've
which I
sat
think is
in,
half of what
yeah,
your car is. I think in a lot of ways, it's older and it's different, but
it's an older generation car. I
yeah.
think it was still well engineered,
Oh
but
yeah,
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 not maybe not quite what we're in with Subaru Motorsports,
yeah.
but it's still well engineered enough that like to experience that the
Weird.
first time. Like I remember getting in a car similar, like with an experienced driver and being like, "Oh, this is what you can do. All right,
The braking and
like these
power
cars
is
can."
crazy, and the
It's crazy.
transmission. Those are the things that really blew me away. Is the control of the
Yeah,
suspension, it wasn't the power necessarily. It was the control of the brake and the position of the suspension, and being able to absorb
yeah,
so much at such a fast rate, like sucking up everything, and
totally.
even
And all
bottoming
that
out too.
allows
Yeah.
Yeah, and all that allows you, it's like you said, it's not power. It's not like they're not the crazy most powerful cars ever, but
They don't need to be.
all those components allow you to carry so much momentum that it doesn't need to be powerful because you're always moving at a high speed. Like
Mhm.
you don't have to like slow right down and then get back on the gas and get all your momentum back. You're just carrying speed through the corners.
It's so wild.
Yeah.
How are you feeling when it comes to your career as a driver now? What's your, are you searching for something? Are you happy? Is there a part of yourself that you're desiring? Is there a racetrack or a course that you're really looking forward to or would love to someday race? Three
Yeah, I
questions in
think
one.
yeah, totally, but it's good. I mean, it is all kind of like all those thoughts go through my head all the time, and
Mm,
I'm definitely at like I did it for okay the first 10 or so years just kind of wanting to do it because I just really enjoyed it. Like I enjoyed motorsport and I got to later enjoy like the culture of it. Like
mm,
it was similar to mountain biking where like the people were really nice and I
mm,
really enjoyed like the camaraderie even during the events and things like that. Like it
mm.
was like I mean I'm doing it as a passion, so I want to be able to enjoy it. It wasn't like aggro race vibes from anyone. It was just like we're out here doing this crazy thing. I can't believe people let us do this.
And it's very
Um,
expensive too. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that too.
Motorsports is
So you
crazy
got to enjoy it.
expensive. Yeah.
Yeah. But then as time went on and I got those opportunities with Subaru and I was able to like learn a lot from more experienced drivers and learn from the technicians and understand the car, like understand like a really, really proper high performance car more and get comfortable in it. Um, I saw like my progression go a lot further.
Mhm.
And then now I'm sort of, actually, like, it sounds weird, but like starting to feel pretty good about like what I can do in the car.
Mm.
Like I feel like I've actually kind of got it figured out. Like I'm doing the right things. I'm not driving it terribly. Which is a nice feeling, because there's definitely times where it's easy to feel like you're blowing it.
Yeah.
Um, or like someone, you're racing someone and they take a bunch of time out of you on a stage, but you don't know where that time went. It's like now I feel like I can break down all those things a lot easier than I could, even a couple years ago. So
Progression.
saying that, like, I would love to now feeling more confident overall with setting up a car, driving the car, working with a team, understanding the events, like being able to understand the notes and work with a co-driver. Um, it would be great to, just more experiences. Like I feel like I have so much room to learn
Yeah.
still.
And
So
seat time is so hard to get to as well. Yeah. It's so
that's
expensive.
really it.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like
So
race
more
time's
seat time.
expensive. Yeah. For everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which makes it difficult.
And new experiences too, like being put in
Different
another
terrain.
situation where I'm out of my element and
Mm.
learning something from that, which might help me overall as a driver. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like hopefully some new experiences, new events, new competitors, anything that just kind of throws a variable in there and like gives me an opportunity to, or pushes me to learn, and keep growing with it. Because I'm really, like, I mean, I'm obviously enjoying it.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. But I still have a desire to take it a lot further. So
Beautiful. It's awesome that
yeah,
you're able to do this again, taking something that you love and then turning it into something that it becomes a passion. That's a lifestyle almost, in a sense. It becomes a,
yeah,
and then it seems like you're still managing to still keep it fun and enjoy it. And that's also a rare thing too, to manage that
totally.
happiness and the fortitude of keeping that happiness somewhat contained
Yeah,
in a good way. And that's cool to work with and to drive with somebody as talented as Travis too, who's an absolute phenom of his generation too, an incredibly talented person, an incredibly competitive and driven human being. I've
yeah,
not
for
met him,
sure.
but I've just heard stories, and I've known I'm like 1 degree away from him in a lot of things, but
Yeah,
super talented dude, and got to be a really interesting
he's
person to
he's
learn from
amazing.
too. So yeah,
Yeah,
shout out
he's
to
an amazing
Travis.
human.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been super fortunate to have him as a teammate. I mean, usually your teammate's your biggest competitor, but he's always been like crazy helpful for me, like especially early on, like helping to understand the car, helping to get familiar with these events and stages that he's done so many times, and not really, he was like fully wide open. Like we would share in car, and he would tell me how he would approach certain parts of the track and things like that. And it would always came down to like, I don't care if you know what I'm doing and I know what you're doing, because he's like, the racing happens on the stage.
Yeah,
He was like,
and it's
he's like, I'm not trying to like, he's like, I'm not trying to play games. He's like, I want us both to be the fastest racers, but then, you know, we can separate ourselves out there, as
yeah.
like yeah. So it was cool mentality, because it helps the team
Oh
too,
yeah.
like, I mean, Subaru's gonna be the fastest team if we can work like that. And I mean, we had fun with it too, like the dollar stages, and always trying to be like, there'd be times where it's like a crazy jump on the stage and we don't know if it's flat or not, and it would be like, a game of chicken and who's going to take it flat and things like that. But he kept it interesting and fun, so I'm yeah, super super appreciative for all the time that he's given me over at that team.
That's awesome. That's really cool to hear. Do you have any interest in doing stuff with cars outside of that, more in the form of like what Travis has been doing by, I don't know, like speculators, not speculators, but like,
Like a rallycross scenario, or
no, it's like taking out of the form of rally, but turning it into some form of entertainment, kind of like what you do with your mountain biking in a sense, like
yeah, totally.
finding the poetry of driving the car and what it means or whatever it might be, or even just if it's a spectator thing where it's like you're doing things like, like Ken took his love of skating and merged it with rally, and then Gymkhana was born,
Yeah,
that kind of thing, so
totally,
yeah.
totally. No, and I definitely do, like, I think just that stuff's always on my mind
Mm.
anyways, because of mountain biking,
Yeah.
and trying to think of cool ideas that could be performed outside of like an event scenario or just a daily riding scenario.
Mhm.
Um, so I think about it a lot. That Ken obviously what he did is incredible. Like he opened up the doors for this like wild content that he produced for a decade or more. And then Travis has also done the same thing, but in like a Travis way.
Yeah,
I feel like I would like to do it, but I could see it doing it like
your way.
in my personal way, yeah, which probably looks quite a bit different when what they've done.
Good.
Um, Definitely not to say it. I don't know if I could hold a torch up to those guys because some of the stuff they've done is just insane. But
Most can't. Yeah.
I definitely, yeah, exactly. I definitely have a desire to branch out, like
Mm.
in yeah, be able to do some fun stuff with a car that isn't just racing and get really creative with this whole new sport and whole new piece of equipment that is really nothing like mountain biking. Like you shoot it a lot differently
Yeah.
and yeah,
This
you experience it differently too when you watch it. So
it's yeah, they're totally different machines, obviously, and mechanisms. I'm glad that you said they're totally different. It'd be interesting if you said they're connected. I'd be like, oh, I wonder how that is. But yeah,
yeah,
having done a little bit of both, and not even, but like experiencing a little bit of both, it's like, oh, these are so polarly differently. But
yeah,
and that's what I think is interesting. They require so much of you as the one doing the thing, and so you being able to live these multiple lives, which is like a producer, a public figure, a mountain bike athlete, a professional rally car driver. It's like all these things, like the dualities of you is pretty interesting, and how you split your time through all those things is fascinating. The last thing I would love to talk about with you is your love of photography. I really love your photography too, and I think that's another way that I think is a cool way for you to express yourself. What got you into photography?
um I was like maybe like around like 2015 or something where I was at a buddy's house. He's a filmmaker. He was like one of the like first filmmakers I started to work with.
Is this Clay?
um no, is this guy Taylor Sage, who, so when I saw you in Temecula,
Mm.
we were shooting. That was actually his property. He was filming.
Oh,
This is like
awesome.
the first time I've worked with him in years. But he started working with a brand I was really close with, and I did a lot of. They're my team manager was local, and so
Mm.
yeah, he ended up being one of the filmmakers for that brand, and we ended up doing a lot of cool little trips and just random videos and things like that. But he was definitely, yeah, like one of the, like I was pretty young still at this time, so he was like one of the first filmmakers where I was really like got to experience that like really collaborative, like, okay, where are we going, what are we shooting, what's the idea, and creating the content, and kind of, yeah, that was like I would say my first real experience at it,
Mm.
was with him.
2015, and then
Yeah, well, so that's like, this is way earlier than that. This is like, let's say 2008,
okay, yeah.
you know.
This is when you started to get
um,
engaged with photography and the power of what it can do, and
well, not photography, but when I started working with him, but
mm.
then yeah, like a later, maybe closer to 2015, I was with Sage, and we were just, can't remember what we were doing, but he's obviously a filmmaker and he takes photos and he's super into film, and he had like all these film cameras, and he kept giving me like film cameras just to like shoot random stuff on this like trip we were
That's
doing.
cool.
And I got super into it, and by the end he could like, I think he could tell that I was like getting super into it.
I love that.
Um,
What,
and he just gave me he's like, oh, here, take this film camera and some film.
mm, what,
And I was like, okay,
what a
cool.
great friend.
Yeah, I know. I was like, this is wicked. And then I just never put it down.
Mm. Do you
And
remember
from
what
that,
body
like,
that was and what lens combination that was?
yeah, so it was an Olympus OMP1 or OM1. It's an OMP. Yeah, I think it was Olympus OM whatever one. It was like the original like SLR, and it had a 50 mil
Mm.
1.4 on
Oh,
it.
great.
And it was like the perfect,
Great
just
combo.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, throw it in your backpack camera.
Yeah.
I was like, this is awesome.
Fantastic lens too.
And totally.
Mm.
And
Closest to the human eye, supposedly 35 to 50
exactly.
depending on sensor size, of course, too. So it's kind of like you taking your human eye and just putting it out into the world.
Yeah, you're trying to capture these actual moments that you're seeing and putting it down. Um,
Because if he gave you like a
and
Micro
so
Four Thirds
around
size and a fisheye, it'd be like, oh
totally,
shit.
so everything looks crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But around that time, I had actually started like a personal production company. Like it's when I really started to just like not be connected to brands or bigger production companies, and I was just doing my own thing with another filmmaker. Um, but for me, I was like, I had a desire already to start to understand like the process and like understanding how to expose and like what could be accomplished with the camera, like
Mm.
not just understanding the writing portion of it. Like I could picture that, but I had a hard time picturing like the videography side and the photography side. And
Mhm.
so when he gave me that camera, I was like, oh, I get it. You know, like I can see how you can compose things and like what light works, what light doesn't, or what
Mm.
this light does compared to that light. And that was really helping me like being a feel like more of a like a collaborator. Like I could actually offer something on the creative side
Great.
than just being like, hey, I'm going to do this trick and I think it looks cool from like a 3/4 angle, you know?
Sure.
Um, so then it helped me start to come up with concepts of like, oh, well, like we should try and shoot at this time and get this crazy whatever it is, flare, use these lights or I don't know, and mesh these shots. However, just like it just gave me more ideas and like concepts and things we could do. And it didn't always have to be about the riding and the next best trick. It could be like, riding that I'm pretty stoked on,
Mm.
but like a really cool concept that like puts it in a different light. It's like it makes it feel like a new experience.
Mm.
So then that I just got really into photography because of that. Um,
Mm.
it was more just gaining an understanding, and then I just never put the camera down. Like I still love it.
Yeah, it's cool because you are able to bring it with you and then you share it, and the world gets to see how you operate through your lens. And even if it's just a moment, and it's also wonderful to have. I find it to be one of the most rewarding artistic endeavors that I've ever done because it allows you. I almost consider it my religion. Um, when I'm out there and I'm capturing nature for the most part, because for me, nature is the biggest inspiration, always is and always will be. And I'm just humbled by how incredibly beautiful it can be, especially if you're aware of it and in the moment. But then capturing it through the right lens, the right time, the right system, you just like, oh my goodness, like I'm witnessing a miracle here. And there's nothing quite like that power, that feeling that you get when you're that connected to it. And it's fascinating because also if you consider how the lens is built, it's similar to the human eye too. The way it dilates
Yeah,
and the way the iris forms and stuff. It's like a reinterpretation of us through a physical, mechanical form, which is again really interesting and a big symbolism again of everything else too. And then capturing that moment and saying, "Look, you might see the world like this, but this is literally how I see it." And like, whoa, look at
totally.
this moment I was in. Like I love
Yeah,
sharing moments of photography with fellow photographers too because it's like you get so inspired. You're like, oh wow,
yeah.
like the way you
There's an
saw that's so
appreciation.
beautiful. Yeah, or that's really
Yeah,
interesting. Or I never even thought of it. When I was growing up, I didn't see the value and importance of photography as much as I do now. I think by doing it a lot more. But there's sometimes I look at a photograph and I go, this does nothing for me. And then sometimes it's like, there's so much in here and I just get, swept into it. So yeah, that's really cool.
yeah.
It makes sense that you do
No,
that.
it's super cool. And like those when you do kind of get that uh, photo, there's that moment where it's like you take the photo and it's like instantly like an aha, like
Hmm. Yeah.
I captured that, like that was like what I wanted, and that was the moment, or like I just realized something that could be captured.
Hmm.
Like it's like it almost opens up the door for like more ideas and like the next step, the next progression of what it could be, and
Yes.
um, it's really cool.
Well, it's crawling
But
too.
I still shoot a lot of, yeah, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I still shoot a lot of film though.
Hmm.
I have a hard time shooting the digital,
Oh yeah.
like just my digital camera. Like I have a digital camera that I travel with everywhere, but I find like if I have a film camera, I'll shoot it way more
Hmm.
because I get so obsessive with the digital camera that I'm like,
Define
because
obsessive.
I can keep picking apart the image. Like I'll be like, oh, I want to go shoot this. I saw this thing over here, and I'm gonna go take a snap of it. And in my head, it's like this is gonna be like a 2 minute thing. I'm gonna go over here, get the photo, and walk away. But then I sit there and I dissect it, and I just like
Mm,
at the end of the day, I'm like, it's almost like when I have a film camera, I'll take 2 slides,
mm,
just to make sure I got it,
mm.
and then that's it. I walk away. Like I don't think about it anymore. Because
Mm.
like the rest of the day, I could think about that photo. I'm like, oh crap, I should have done this. You
Interesting.
know?
So like the
Yeah,
design of film being the saying that it actually isn't infinite because you do have an allotted amount of film to be able to use.
yeah,
Basically it makes it more of a focus then, so you can't. Yeah, I think I
um,
noticed that too in myself and other photographers, is that the difference between film and digital, and there's always this battle. I don't give a crap either way, but uh that digital is so it's temporary, and that sense you can fire a lot. The way I look at it is, and
yeah,
actually all of my bodies track the amount of frames that I've captured, and I have them quantified, and
yeah.
I've almost shot about 30,000 photographs now, which I love because
That's crazy.
yeah, because I love that, because when I go to shoot, I think what I'm, and every photographer discovers this as you go through it, and it's almost like a purpose of life. At least that's how I look at it. Everything's a metaphor, again, how I look at it. But as I capture these things, I'm literally just trying to distill the moment of feeling. And I go, oh, okay, what am I trying
Yeah,
to, and how do I explain this to somebody? And I always think that there's two photographers for me. It's like the person that's there, the human being that's there in the moment of time that will never happen before and after that moment. It's just that moment. And then when I bring it back into the computer and I grade it, I'm trying to grade it based on the emotion of what I felt, of the
yeah,
memory.
totally.
That's a totally different thing too, which I love. I love grading too. Didn't realize there's this
Yeah.
whole other side of love. The second photographer back home, the
Like
developer. Yeah.
actually bringing it to life.
Yeah.
It's like you could see it, be like, okay, yeah, this is it. This is how it's supposed to look.
Yeah. Or maybe when you shot it, it was like the sky was more of like an emerald green when you capture it, but then when you come in the computer, you're like, based on how I felt, it was more in the bluish tone, and shifting
Right.
it and that feeling, and then pushing that emotion to the photo through the colors and the way it's exposed and the composition. It's like, yeah, I don't know. It's such a fascinating thing. I learned so much from just failing with photography and shooting those 30,000 plus. And then the ratio gets smaller of failure because but then then that's another thing I get caught. When my wife and I last went to Europe for 2 weeks, I brought one body and one lens the whole time I shot the whole thing. And that's
Right.
rare for me. Usually I'll switch lenses and try different things. But this time I was like, I'm going to be strict. And it was a 50 mil 1.8 anamorphic lens,
Nice.
and so I shot anamorphically 1.8 squeeze. It was fun though. It was like 50 mil, and I had to move myself through the world to capture the crop that I wanted. But yeah, it was fun. It was
It'll force you to look at things differently as well.
totally.
Like I find like when you have the lenses, all the lenses, you're like
Mm.
you're just gonna go to what you would naturally think about.
Yes,
But if you're stuck with a lens and you've got to make it work, then you start to look at things just differently, and
yes,
all of a sudden you're like, you know what? Actually, I kind of like this more. Like you get some other ideas.
yeah. Were you telling me about the Spike Jones stuff, or were we talking about that?
I think we were talking about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you tell me about the Spike Jones?
Just a podcast.
He had. I think that Vice did a documentary on him. Maybe Ian
Oh
mentioned
yeah,
it.
the Vice documentary,
Did
right?
you mention that to me? I can't remember.
Yeah,
I watched it and I
I think
loved
we
it.
you. Yeah, yeah, it's
Or was
amazing.
maybe I sent it to you? I can't remember, but
I think you sent it to me,
okay.
but I'd watched that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
It's incredible.
I love his
Yeah,
process because he seems, I don't know, I can't say we're related in the same way, but I feel like we're all possessed by something. And
yeah,
then he got into photography, and then, I mean, the guy's so insanely prolific. It's like this career is insanely amazing, but how people were articulating how he saw skateboarding because he was so intimately connected to it, and how he would capture it. I think that's when I distill down what we talked about in so many ways. A lot of it is the act of doing, and the act of being present, the act of genuinely engaging with the thing that you're doing, and how much you garner and learn and gain from life by going through that pure experience of life,
totally. Yeah. No, yeah, like I think he started as a photographer.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that was yeah, but he was shooting BMX stuff, and like and then it like moved to skate, and
Yeah.
but it's cool to see like his creativeness like pass through all that and just keep kind of climbing
Savage.
towards what he's done now. It's incredible. And then also, but his passion to keep coming back to like skate and these like kind of jackass type productions where it's like it's so like loose and opposite of like the commercial world, but him just throwing like amazing creative ideas and opening up the doors in the sports and action world with to like, hey, you can do this stuff too, and mingle it with, you know, it doesn't have to be your standard skate video all the time or whatever he comes up with. It's just impressive.
So impressive. I mean, it's so crazy that we almost wash over the fact that he filmed and directed Being John Malkovich and Her, and it's
Right.
like, my goodness, man. I think adaptation as well. It's like these are seminal cinematography, like they're seminal films, you know, in American culture, which is crazy. But anyways, I think there's all these similarities, and there's a lot of really cool stuff that I've garnered from like learning about him and seeing what you're doing, and then the focus of film and the difference of digital and film. And yeah, I think as long as you're just present in the moment doing it, that's my opinion, is like you're capturing the
Yeah.
essence. And I do a lot I don't know if you're the same, but I take a lot of photographs just for me too. There's certain parts of my art that I feel like I don't want to, it's not, ruin's not the right word, but like I like to keep it insular and like, oh, that was a moment for me and just me only.
Yeah.
Like a selfish thing.
I'm very much like that. Like I would say, I don't know, 99% of the images I take just live on a folder in my computer, you know, like I don't ever really do anything with them, but it's more of like it's an experience and a little learning process every time that I'm like shooting and getting the images back and kind of like personally dissecting what I've done or what I've done, you know, wrong or right or anything. Like it's just kind of, yeah. And then again, like digital camera, I kind of walk up to say the subject and then I'm just like kind of shooting right away.
Mm,
And that's tough for me.
mm,
Whereas like film, I'm like, I have to be like, okay, I'm already like kind of getting exposure and everything set up. And then I'm thinking about the photo way more. And then I take the one or two images I'm going to take and I walk away.
mhm.
And then later when I get you know, developed film back, then I can kind of like dissect what I've done. And then I'll take what I learned into the next roll of film. But yeah, I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm not really shooting it because I need to put it out anywhere. I'm just shooting it because I saw a moment and I want to capture it
Mm.
and I want to learn from it. And then yeah, like most of it just sits on a folder. So it's yeah. If I was a photographer, it'd be a different story. But it's more just for me, anyways.
I think that's where it should be a lot, I think too. I think photography, when it turns into a profession, can then be jeopardized in a lot of way. I like to try, like it's
Yeah,
like when I take photos and I share it with a lot of my friends, and they're like, "Oh, you should make a book and this, that." I'm like, but to me, it's like I don't want to do that. I want to show you how I see the world in a simple form and just make it free and
yeah,
see. Of course, maybe someday, but yeah, I think that's a really beautiful approach. I've not shot film since I was like really young, and I have not since then. It seems like a completely different approach. When you're mentioning that, I'm thinking about like Stanley Kubrick when he was coming up as a filmmaker. He obviously started on film because digital wasn't really a thing, of course, when his career started. But back when he was taking photographs for like magazines in New York, I think, and articles and stuff, he would.
yeah,
And I love the idea that you're just, it's like you can't really capture the rawness of the moment happening at the moment because unless you're really fast and know your tools super quickly, but if you're sitting there meditating on it, I guess this is a different approach. I never really thought of it like that. I'd like to someday do it. I know it's quite a bit more expensive, so I'd have to think about the different approach to it. So,
yeah, yeah.
and if I did it, there's this one camera I would love to get. It shoots double frame, so it's like,
Oh yeah, it's like the panoramic.
yeah, that's like I don't know what it is. I see
I
things
think
like that.
Hasselblad has an insane
That
one.
one's really expensive.
The
There's a
really nice
cheaper
one's a
one. Olympus
Hasselblad.
has one, I think.
There's a cheaper
Yeah,
one.
I can't
Yeah, yeah,
remember the name. There's this YouTuber that's awesome. He makes incredible stuff, and he did a really rad breakdown. But anytime these guys do that, the camera prices like skyrocket. So I'm like,
I know it's
f.
nuts. But
Yeah,
yeah, those cameras are really cool and
mm,
like again, it's giving you this crazy aspect you wouldn't normally shoot with digital.
yeah,
Um, but it can create like you can bring in the environment really cool. Like obviously it's all application based, but
yeah,
yeah, there's some pretty amazing photography from those cameras.
yeah.
It's just yeah, it's just fun.
Have to get it.
And I feel
Mm,
like the film, like you never really can like put your finger on like because it's film, I mean, the dynamic range is great, and that's one reason I love it.
Yeah.
But then also, you can't really put your finger on like when it was ever shot
Mm.
because it already has like the nostalgia to it.
True.
Whereas
Yeah.
like digital, I feel like you can always kind of figure out, or like generally you would like know what year it was shot. But like film always just feels like it could be any time,
Yeah.
which is kind
I
of
never
nice.
thought of it like that. Yeah, because there is so many different distilled qualities to what makes film so special. Mainly
Yeah, yeah.
the dynamic range, because film exposes with such a bigger range than digital. It's getting closer now. Every day, it's getting a little
Oh, it
closer.
is. It is. Yeah.
I'd say still my point and shoot camera isn't even close to the dynamic range yet, but the newest ones are coming out. I'm like, it's pretty cool. But then it's
It's pretty
also,
crazy.
when digital is so crisp and perfect, it really ruins the texture of things. But I
Yeah.
think we've talked about this. I've been employing a lot of things to dissect, and like even when I'm looking at my camera here, it's like I think I have, not on this one, but I usually put like a pro mist filter on it to diffuse the harsh edge
Yeah.
of the highlights and things like that, little tricks. But then it's like you bake it inside of the image, and so you got to be okay with that. But when it's digital, you just So I remember one time
Go
talking to
for it.
Larry Chen, and he
Yeah.
was saying he has like some sort of like 500 terabytes worth of photographs or something. Like, that's insanity, dude. The amount of
That's
photographs that guy
wild.
takes is just like spraying everywhere. It's crazy, but everybody has
Yeah.
a different approach too. And he's also like such a machine monster that he captures so much stuff, such a content
Totally.
machine.
He's always working.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
he's one of the very few. I don't. It's hard to find somebody that works as hard as Larry. He's a very unique human being.
Right.
Yes, savage guy. But dude, it's been amazing to talk with you, get to know you more, and I really do love and appreciate your complete openness and your dynamic flow of conversation. It's been outstanding and wonderful, and such a fan. As you know, I'm such a fan of what you do, and yeah, thank you for being a part of the podcast and this little time capsule. Hopefully we can, you've enjoyed your time, and yeah, if there's anything else that you wanted
Oh
to
yeah,
mention or say, yeah, let me know. But we can always do this anytime as well. But yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
it's been
No, I really appreciate it. It's obviously I'm uh very honored to be on here, and also a big fan of your work as well. It's been again, I draw my inspiration from a lot of things, and you've been one of those dudes where I'm just like also enamored by what you create. So it's cool to catch up a little more. I know we got to hang out just briefly for that one breakfast, but yeah, it's been a treat to dive a little deeper and yeah, dig into things.
amazing. Bless. Thank you so much, man. Yeah, and yeah, keep rocking. Have a wonderful day and be safe out there.
Yeah, man, for
And
sure.
keep making your
Definitely.
epic art.